origins of the Jedi Order. To truly understand the Jedi Order, their profound connection to the Force, their ancient wisdom, and their pivotal role in the galaxy, it is essential to journey far back in time to the very beginnings of their existence. The origins of the Jedi Order stretch back tens of thousands of years before the events commonly known in the Star Wars saga. This era is shrouded in mystery, myth, and legend, but through careful exploration of ancient texts, holocrons, and lore, we can piece together the story of how the Jedi came to be. The story begins with the Force itself, the unseen, omnipresent energy field that binds all living things together. The Force is divided into two opposing yet complementary aspects: the light side, which embodies peace, healing, compassion, and harmony, and the dark side, which embodies passion, aggression, anger, and destruction. From the dawn of sentient life in the galaxy, individuals sensitive to this energy began to sense its presence and seek ways to understand and channel it. One of the earliest known groups to study the Force were the Jedi, an order of Force-sensitive individuals who lived on the remote and wild planet called Tython. Located deep within the galactic core, Tython was a planet alive with raw Force energy, featuring mysterious temples and natural landscapes charged with mystical power. The Jedi did not see the Force as a simple dichotomy of good and evil, but rather as a balanced duality, an interplay between light and dark that was natural and necessary. The Jedi philosophy was centered on balance. They believed that the light side and the dark side were two halves of a greater whole, and that true mastery of the Force came from embracing and understanding both. Their teachings emphasized self-restraint, meditation, and harmony with nature and the Force itself. The Jedi sought to avoid extremes, rejecting neither side, but instead walking a path of equilibrium. Tython was not just a home, but a training ground. The Jedi built vast temples and academies where apprentices learned to channel the Force through study, combat, and spiritual discipline. The Order included warriors who honed their lightsaber skills, scholars who delved into the mysteries of the Force, and diplomats who mediated conflicts on and beyond Tython. Despite their ideals, the Jedi were not immune to conflict. Within their ranks, some Force users began to favor the dark side's power and passions, craving dominance and control. This internal strife led to violent clashes. Early examples of the ideological and physical battles that would plague Jedi history for millennia. The schism between those who embraced the light and those who succumbed to darkness would sow the seeds for the eventual rise of the Sith, a faction dedicated solely to the dark side. As millennia passed, the Jedi Order grew more widespread, sending emissaries and explorers to other star systems rich in Force energy. Through these missions, they encountered countless civilizations and cultures, many with their own traditions and understandings of the Force. The Jedi were pioneers, often acting as peacekeepers and guardians of knowledge. Gradually, the Jedi Order's philosophy evolved. The galaxy around them was changing, and the dangers posed by the dark side became more apparent. The realization dawned that, while balance was a noble ideal, the dark side's seductive and corrupting nature threatened to overwhelm and destroy. The Order began to emphasize the importance of resisting the dark side's temptations and committing more fully to the light side's virtues. This shift marked the emergence of what we now recognize as the Jedi Order. No longer simply seekers of balance, the Jedi adopted a stricter code of ethics and conduct centered on selflessness, compassion, and the defense of peace and justice. The Jedi Code, composed of guiding principles, helps Jedi resist fear, anger, and hatred, emotions that could lead to the dark side. The Jedi Order grew as a structured organization dedicated to serving the galaxy. Their role expanded beyond spiritual guides and scholars to become diplomats, peacekeepers, and warriors. The Jedi pledged themselves as protectors of the innocent, defenders of freedom, and guardians of the balance of the Force. At the heart of this transformation was the founding of the Galactic Republic, a coalition of planets and species seeking stability and governance across the stars. The Jedi became the Republic's champions, entrusted with maintaining peace and order. Their presence was a symbol of hope and justice in a galaxy often fraught with conflict and uncertainty. On the capital world of Coruscant, the Jedi Temple was established as the Order's headquarters, a magnificent spire rising above the cityscape, housing libraries, training halls, and meditation chambers. Here, Jedi trained generations of apprentices, honing their skills in the Force and lightsaber combat, learning the ancient wisdom passed down from the Jedi and their predecessors. Despite their noble intentions and tremendous power, the Jedi's path was never easy. They faced numerous threats, from violent alien species and criminal syndicates to the constant menace of Sith Lords, those who embraced the dark side fully and sought domination over the galaxy. The ancient rivalry between Jedi and Sith defined much of galactic history, with wars and betrayals marking their shared timeline. Yet, through all trials, the Jedi Order persevered. Their origins, rooted in a desire to understand the Force, respect its balance, and serve the greater good, remained the guiding light. This origin story reminds us that the Jedi are more than warriors. They are seekers of wisdom, champions of peace, and beacons of hope in a galaxy often torn by darkness. As we continue through the Jedi timeline, we carry with us the memory of those ancient beginnings on Tython and the enduring legacy of the Jedi. Their story is a testament to the power of balance, the struggle against darkness, and the unending quest for harmony in a vast and mysterious universe. The early Jedi and the Jedi Order. The origins of the Jedi Order are inseparable from the story of their spiritual ancestors. The Jedi Order. This ancient group of Force-sensitive beings forged the very foundation of what would become the Jedi tradition, embodying a unique philosophy, culture, and approach to the Force, one that shaped millennia of galactic history. The Jedi originated on the remote planet of Tython, located near the galactic core in a dense cluster of stars. Unlike many worlds, Tython was alive with raw and powerful Force energy, a place where the Force itself seemed to permeate the environment, from the towering crystalline spires to the vast untamed landscapes. This planet became a natural gathering place for early Force-sensitive individuals who sought to understand the mysterious power that connected all living things. Tython's rich connection to the Force made it the crucible for the first great Force-sensitivity civilization. It was here that the Jedi built their first temples and academies designed to harness and study the Force in all its complexities. These early temples were not merely places of worship, but centers of learning, training, and exploration, where Force users could hone their abilities and philosophies. The Jedi's philosophy centered on the concept of balance. Unlike the Jedi, who would emerge later with a strict adherence to the light side, the Jedi believed the Force was a duality, a cosmic interplay between light and dark, peace and passion, creation and destruction. They taught that neither side was inherently good or evil, but that each was essential for the harmony of the universe. Their goal was to maintain equilibrium by embracing and understanding both sides. This balanced approach set the Jedi apart from later Force traditions. They saw the Force as a living entity, a flowing current that needed to be respected in its entirety. The Jedi strove to avoid extremes, warning against the dangers of succumbing wholly to either the light or dark. For them, mastery meant walking the middle path, accepting both the serenity and the fury of the Force while preventing either from dominating. The Jedi Order was structured and disciplined, yet diverse in its roles and members. The Order was comprised of scholars, philosophers, warriors, diplomats, and explorers, each contributing to the pursuit of balance and knowledge. Their early weaponry included primitive forms of what would evolve into lightsabers, energy blades powered by crystals mined from the planet's depths, resonating with the Force. Training was rigorous. Young Force-sensitive individuals were carefully instructed in meditation, combat, diplomacy, and ethics. Their training aimed not only to develop power, but to instill wisdom and self-control, tools to resist the temptation of the dark side's seductive power. Despite their dedication to balance, the Jedi Order was not immune to internal conflict. The Force's dark side exerted a powerful influence, and some members became drawn toward passion, ambition, and domination. These individuals often broke away or rebelled against the Order's teachings, believing that the dark side offered greater strength and freedom. These schisms led to periods of strife and warfare, among the earliest examples of what would become the legendary Jedi-Sith conflicts. One of the most notable early conflicts was known as the 100-Year Darkness, a brutal and protracted war between the Jedi and factions devoted to the dark side. This war tested the Order's philosophy of balance and forced them to confront the destructive potential of unchecked passion and aggression. The conflict culminated in profound consequences for the Jedi and their homeworld. It shattered old alliances, reshaped political structures, and deepened the Order's understanding of the dangers of the dark side. From these trials, the Jedi began to emphasize caution and self-restraint more heavily, gradually shifting away from pure balance toward a stronger focus on the light side. The Jedi also embarked on expansive journeys beyond Tython, sending emissaries and explorers across the galaxy. These missions sought new sources of Force knowledge, new civilizations to protect, and new allies in maintaining galactic peace. The Order's reach extended to planets with abundant Force energy, where they established enclaves, shared teachings, and learned from other cultures. Their exploration and diplomacy helped forge a vast network of influence and respect, setting the stage for the eventual formation of the Jedi Order as peacekeepers of the newly established Galactic Republic. Yet even as the Jedi spread their teachings, they faced ongoing challenges, not only from external threats, but from the very Force they sought to master. As millennia passed, the Order's philosophy evolved. The realization that the dark side's corrupting nature was an existential threat led to the development of the Jedi Code, a strict ethical guide that prioritized compassion, selflessness, and emotional discipline. The Jedi Code rejected passion, attachment, and fear as dangerous pathways to the dark side. This transition marked the birth of the Jedi Order, as it is most famously known, guardians of peace, who embraced the light side as their guiding principle. Though different in doctrine from the Jedi carried forward the foundational lesson that the Force is a powerful and living energy that must be respected and protected. However, echoes of the Jedi's balanced teachings lingered. Even within the Jedi, debates and struggles over interpretation and philosophy continued. Some Jedi recognized the value in understanding the dark side, while others remained rigid in their rejection. This tension would play out across the centuries in their battles against Sith Lords who fully embraced the dark side. The legacy of the Jedi Order remains a crucial chapter in the long story of the Jedi. Their origins on Tython, their commitment to balance, and their enduring pursuit of knowledge and harmony laid the spiritual and philosophical groundwork for all who would follow. In the grand tapestry of galactic history, the Jedi remind us that the Force is a complex, living entity, one that requires wisdom, humility, and courage to navigate. Their story is a timeless lesson on the necessity of balance, the dangers of extremism, and the eternal quest for peace in a galaxy often torn by conflict. As we continue this journey through the Jedi timeline, we carry with us the memory of the Jedi, those ancient seekers who first walked the path of the Force, forging the destiny of the Jedi Order to come. The formation of the Galactic Republic and the Jedi's role, the origins of the Jedi Order are deeply intertwined with the story of the Galactic Republic, a vast political union that would become one of the galaxy's oldest and most enduring institutions. To fully understand the Jedi's evolution and their profound role, it is necessary to explore how the Republic came to be and how the Jedi Order became its unwavering guardians, peacekeepers, and spiritual guides. After millennia of Jedi teachings on Tython and the gradual philosophical shift that birthed the Jedi Order, the galaxy began to take shape in a more organized form. Hundreds of star systems, each with diverse cultures, species, and histories, were scattered across the vast cosmos. For eons, these systems operated independently or in small coalitions, often locked in rivalry, conflict, or isolation. Yet the increasing interaction among species, through trade, migration, and exploration, created a growing need for a unified system to maintain order and peace. Around 25,000 years before the events of the Skywalker saga, representatives from these many worlds gathered to establish the Galactic Republic. This new political federation aimed to bring unity, stability, and a collective voice to the galaxy. The Republic was founded on principles of democracy, justice, and cooperation, a framework designed to prevent the chaos and endless wars that had long plagued the galaxy. It was in this formative era that the Jedi Order found a new purpose and role. Emerging from centuries of spiritual growth and philosophical refinement, the Jedi pledged themselves as defenders of the Republic and guardians of peace and justice. Their commitment to balance, harmony, and selflessness aligned perfectly with the Republic's ideals, and the two institutions quickly became partners in safeguarding the galaxy. The Jedi did not seek political power for themselves, but rather sought to serve as impartial protectors and mediators. They believed their role was to use their unique connection to the Force to resolve conflicts, protect the innocent, and guide the Republic's leaders toward just decisions. This relationship was symbiotic. The Republic provided political structure and resources, while the Jedi offered wisdom, diplomacy, and martial skill. At the heart of the Jedi's organizational structure was the Jedi High Council. Composed of the wisest and most powerful Jedi Masters, the Council was the Order's governing body. It set policies, oversaw training, and sent Jedi on important missions across the galaxy. The Council also served as an advisory group to the Republic's Senate and leaders, offering guidance during crises and ensuring that the Jedi acted in accordance with their principles. The Jedi's role in the Republic was multifaceted. As peacekeepers, they traveled between star systems to prevent conflicts from escalating. As diplomats, they negotiated treaties and alliances. As warriors, they fought when necessary to defend the Republic from external threats. Their presence alone was often enough to deter aggression, as their reputation for fairness and strength was well known. Yet maintaining peace across such a vast and diverse galaxy was an immense challenge. The Republic's borders stretched across thousands of systems, each with its own cultures, laws, and ambitions. Tensions and conflicts were frequent, ranging from trade disputes to violent rebellions. The Jedi were called upon constantly to intervene, mediate, or, in extreme cases, lead military action. One of the earliest and most significant tests of the Jedi Republic alliance was the Great Hyperspace War. This galaxy-wide conflict erupted when the ancient Sith Empire attempted to seize control of vital hyperspace routes, key to trade and communication. The Sith, wielders of the dark side, sought domination over the Republic, leading to a devastating war that engulfed star systems and threatened to unravel the fragile peace. The Jedi played a crucial role in rallying Republic forces, engaging in intense battles both on the ground and in space. Though the war was ultimately won by the Republic, it exposed the vulnerability of galactic peace and the ever-present threat of darkness. The war reinforced the need for the Jedi to remain vigilant and for the Republic to strengthen its political and military institutions. Beyond warfare, the Jedi were involved in the Republic's political sphere, though always with a delicate touch. They were careful to avoid becoming entangled in partisan politics, maintaining neutrality to preserve their integrity as peacekeepers. This balance was difficult to maintain, especially as some factions within the Republic viewed the Jedi's influence with suspicion or resentment. The Jedi's strict adherence to the Jedi Code, a set of ethical guidelines emphasizing selflessness, emotional restraint, and commitment to the light side, sometimes set them apart from ordinary citizens and politicians. Their rejection of attachment and personal desire was intended to prevent the dark side's corruption, but could lead to misunderstandings and emotional distance. Training new Jedi became a sacred duty. From a young age, Force-sensitive children were identified and brought to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, the Republic's capital planet and political heart. The temple was a sprawling complex of ancient architecture and advanced technology, serving as the Order's headquarters, academy, and spiritual center. Younglings began their studies with basic lessons in the Force, ethics, and lightsaber combat. Promising students advanced to become Padawans, apprentices assigned to experienced Jedi Knights or Masters for mentorship and further training. The goal was to prepare them for the responsibilities of peacekeeping, diplomacy, and, when necessary, battle. The Republic and Jedi enjoyed centuries of relative peace and cooperation, but tensions were never far away. The Jedi's role as the Republic's protectors was continually tested by new threats. Marauding warlords, Sith cults, criminal syndicates, and political intrigue. Each challenge shaped the Jedi, strengthening their resolve and refining their mission. Yet, the growing complexity of the galaxy also introduced new difficulties. The Jedi's impartiality was challenged by politics and personal emotions. Their strict rules sometimes conflicted with the realities of war and governance, and the shadow of the dark side always loomed, tempting individuals toward corruption and betrayal. Despite these challenges, the partnership between the Jedi and the Galactic Republic stood as a pillar of hope and stability. Together, they shaped the galaxy's history, culture, and destiny for thousands of years. As we continue along the timeline, this alliance would face its greatest trials yet, events that would reshape the Jedi, the Republic, and the very fate of the galaxy itself. The Jedi Code and philosophy. At the heart of the Jedi Order lies not only their mastery of the Force and combat skills, but, perhaps more importantly, their guiding principles, known collectively as the Jedi Code. This code, along with the underlying philosophy of the Jedi, shapes every decision, every action, and every belief held by the Order. To truly understand what it means to be a Jedi, one must first grasp the ideals that govern their lives, ideals rooted in balance, discipline, compassion, and unwavering dedication to the light side of the Force. The Jedi Code was born from centuries of reflection and experience, shaped by the ancient struggles of the Jedi and refined through the millennia as the Jedi evolved. Its purpose is to provide a moral and spiritual framework that helps Jedi resist the seductive pull of the dark side, a force of chaos, anger, and destruction that threatens to consume all who give in to it. The Code is not simply a set of rules, but a living philosophy, a guide to help Jedi maintain inner peace and harmony with the Force and the galaxy. The most commonly known version of the Jedi Code is composed of 5 succinct tenets. There is no emotion, there is peace. Jedi are taught to master their emotions, understanding that uncontrolled feelings such as anger, fear, and hatred can lead them down the dangerous path to the dark side. This does not mean that Jedi are devoid of emotions, but rather that they strive for calmness and serenity, cultivating peace within themselves to act with clarity and wisdom. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. Knowledge and understanding are central to the Jedi's purpose. Through study, meditation, and experience, Jedi seek to broaden their awareness of the Force, the galaxy, and the beings within it. This tenet encourages continual learning and discourages blind faith or dogma. There is no passion, there is serenity. Passion, while a natural human feeling, can fuel attachment and selfish desires, which lead to fear and suffering. Jedi embrace serenity, a state of emotional stability and equanimity, allowing them to respond thoughtfully and compassionately rather than react impulsively. There is no chaos, there is harmony. The Jedi believe the universe is interconnected and that harmony must be preserved. Even in moments of conflict, Jedi seek to restore balance and peace, understanding that disorder often arises from imbalance, especially when the dark side is at work. There is no death, there is the Force. Death is not an end, but a transformation. Jedi believe that the Force is eternal, and through it, all living things are connected beyond physical existence. This belief gives Jedi courage and a profound sense of purpose, transcending fear of mortality. While these tenets may seem straightforward, living by the Jedi Code is a lifelong challenge. Jedi must constantly examine their thoughts, emotions, and actions to ensure they align with these ideals. This introspection requires immense discipline, humility, and strength of character. Beyond the Code itself, the Jedi philosophy encompasses several broader themes that shape the Order's identity. 1. Selflessness and service. Jedi are taught to put the needs of others above their own. They serve as guardians of peace and justice, not for personal gain or glory, but to protect the innocent and uphold the balance of the Force. This dedication to selflessness often requires great sacrifice. 2. Non-attachment. One of the most misunderstood aspects of the Jedi philosophy is their stance on attachment. Jedi are discouraged from forming strong personal attachments, whether romantic, familial, or possessive, because such bonds can lead to fear of loss, jealousy, and ultimately the dark side. This teaching promotes emotional resilience but also creates deep personal challenges for many Jedi. 3. Emotional discipline. While Jedi do experience emotions, they strive not to be ruled by them. Emotional discipline allows Jedi to make decisions based on reason, compassion, and the greater good, rather than fleeting passions or fears. Meditation and mindfulness are essential tools in this practice. 4. Harmony with the Force. The Jedi see themselves as instruments of the Force, seeking to align their will with its flow. They respect all life and believe in the interconnectedness of all beings. This worldview fosters empathy, compassion, and respect for diversity. 5. Balance between light and dark. Though Jedi are staunch followers of the light side, they recognize that darkness exists as a natural counterpart. The Order's history, rooted in the ancient Jedi belief in balance, reminds Jedi of the constant tension between these forces and the necessity of vigilance against the dark side's influence. Living these principles requires constant vigilance. The dark side's temptations are powerful and ever-present. Fear, anger, pride, and desire can easily corrupt even the strongest Jedi. Many Jedi throughout history have fallen, seduced by these emotions, becoming Sith Lords or Dark Jedi who serve chaos and selfish ambition. The Jedi Code also governs the Order's internal structure and training methods. From the earliest days as younglings, students are taught not only to master the Force and lightsaber combat, but also to understand and embody the Code. Mentorship, rigorous study, and practical experience help Jedi cultivate these values. Yet the Code is not without controversy or challenge. Some Jedi have questioned its strictness, especially regarding emotional suppression and non-attachment. These tensions have sometimes led to internal conflicts within the Order, debates over interpretation, and even schisms. Such challenges highlight the complexity of living an idealized philosophy in an imperfect, often violent galaxy. Despite its difficulties, the Jedi Code remains the Order's moral backbone. It defines what it means to be a Jedi, guiding them through the trials of war, peace, and personal struggle. It reminds Jedi that their power is not for dominance, but for protection, that their strength lies in compassion, and that their true mission is to serve as beacons of hope and peace. As we continue to explore the Jedi timeline, the enduring influence of the Jedi Code and philosophy will shape the Order's greatest triumphs and deepest tragedies. This balance of light and shadow, discipline and compassion, is the essence of the Jedi legacy, one that continues to inspire across the stars. The rise of the Sith and the Jedi-Sith conflict. The history of the Jedi Order cannot be told without acknowledging its greatest and most enduring adversaries, the Sith. The rise of the Sith and the subsequent conflict between these two powerful Force traditions has shaped the destiny of the galaxy for millennia. To fully understand the Jedi story, we must explore the origins of the Sith, their dark philosophy, and the epic struggle that has defined the cosmic balance between light and dark. The Sith's origins trace back thousands of years before the rise of the Galactic Republic. Initially, the Sith were not a separate species or group, but rather a sect of Force users who diverged from the Jedi path. These early practitioners became seduced by the dark side of the Force, embracing its passions, ambitions, and power. Rejecting the Jedi Code and its emphasis on peace and restraint, these dark Force users sought strength through emotions such as anger, hatred, and fear. The schism between the Jedi and the dark practitioners led to bitter conflicts, but it was not until a significant group of these dark Force users fled the Republic's territories and found refuge on the distant, harsh planet of Korriban, later called Moraband, that the Sith truly took form as an organized order. Here, among the ancient tombs of powerful dark Force wielders, the Sith Order was born. Unlike the Jedi, the Sith embraced the dark side unapologetically. Their philosophy centered on the pursuit of personal power, domination, and the right of the strong to rule over the weak. The Sith believed that passion and ambition were sources of strength rather than weaknesses to be suppressed. This ideology was expressed through a strict hierarchy where power was everything and betrayal was common as Sith competed for supremacy. The Sith Order established rituals, teachings, and traditions to cultivate their connection to the dark side. They honed their skills in combat, dark sorcery, and manipulation, using fear and hatred as tools to achieve their ends. Their ultimate goal was galactic domination, which brought them into inevitable conflict with the Jedi and the Republic. The millennium-long Sith Jedi Wars erupted as the Sith launched numerous invasions and campaigns against the Republic and the Jedi. These conflicts devastated planets, altered political alliances, and tested the resilience of both orders. The Jedi, defenders of peace and justice, fought fiercely to repel the Sith and protect the innocent, while the Sith sought to dismantle the Republic and impose their dark vision. Despite the Sith's viciousness and power, they suffered from internal strife, as Sith Lords frequently turned on one another in deadly contests for leadership. This instability sometimes weakened them, allowing the Jedi to regain control and preserve the Republic. Yet the Sith's cunning and ruthlessness ensured that the threat never fully vanished. Over the centuries, the Sith's tactics evolved. After suffering defeats in open warfare, they adopted subterfuge and secrecy. The Sith embraced the Rule of Two, a doctrine established by Darth Bane which dictated that only two Siths could exist at one time, a master to hold power and an apprentice to learn and eventually challenge the master. This rule was designed to prevent the infighting that had plagued the Sith and to ensure their survival in the shadows. This doctrine allowed the Sith to operate covertly within the galaxy, manipulating political systems and corrupting key figures. Their long-term plan involved infiltrating the Republic and the Jedi Order to dismantle them from within. This shadow war would culminate thousands of years later in some of the most significant events in galactic history. Throughout this era, the Jedi Order remained vigilant, constantly adapting to the changing threat posed by the Sith. They expanded their knowledge of the Force, improved their combat techniques, and strengthened their bonds with the Republic. Jedi Masters trained countless apprentices to prepare for the inevitable confrontations with the dark enemies. However, the Jedi's commitment to the light side and their strict code sometimes left them vulnerable to deception and internal conflict. Their refusal to engage in politics or personal attachments occasionally hindered their ability to respond to Sith schemes effectively. Moreover, their reliance on emotional restraint was sometimes exploited by Sith, who used passion and ambition to fuel their power. The Jedi-Sith conflict was not merely a physical battle, but a profound ideological war between light and dark, selflessness and selfishness, peace and domination. This cosmic struggle echoed the very nature of the Force itself, a dynamic tension that defined existence. As the Sith continued to grow in influence and power, the galaxy faced recurring cycles of war and peace, hope and despair. The Jedi Order's legacy would be marked by heroic victories, devastating losses, and the ongoing quest to preserve balance. The ancient rivalry between Jedi and Sith set the stage for many of the galaxy's most legendary figures and pivotal moments, including the fall of the Republic, the rise of the Galactic Empire, and the eventual redemption of key players caught between light and dark. In this eternal conflict, the fate of countless worlds and beings hung in the balance. The story of the Sith's rise and the Jedi's unwavering resistance remains one of the most compelling and enduring sagas in galactic history, an epic tale of power, betrayal, sacrifice, and hope that continues to resonate across the stars. The Mandalorian Wars and the Jedi Civil War. Long before the rise of the Galactic Empire or the conflicts of the Skywalker saga, the galaxy was torn apart by a brutal sequence of wars that would forever reshape the Jedi Order and give rise to one of the most legendary figures in Jedi and Sith history, Revan. The Mandalorian Wars and the Jedi Civil War were two back-to-back cataclysms that tested the moral foundations of the Jedi, fractured their unity, and brought forth some of the most complex and tragic decisions ever faced by the Order. The Mandalorian Wars began nearly 4,000 years before the events of the Clone Wars, during a period when the Republic enjoyed relative peace. However, this peace was shattered when the Mandalorian honor-bound warrior culture driven by conquest began a campaign of expansion. Led by the fearsome Mandalore the Ultimate, the Mandalorians launched a brutal invasion of the Outer Rim, quickly overwhelming Republic defenses and enslaving or exterminating countless worlds. The Republic Senate, paralyzed by indecision and internal debate, hesitated to respond with full military force. In response, many in the galaxy looked to the Jedi Order for guidance and leadership. However, the Jedi Council adopted a policy of non-intervention, insisting that the Force had not yet revealed the proper course of action. This stance frustrated many younger Jedi, especially two charismatic and powerful knights, Revan and his close friend Alec, later known as Malak. Revan, a gifted tactician and prodigy in the Force, grew increasingly frustrated with the Council's inaction. He believed that allowing the Mandalorians to rampage unchecked was a betrayal of the Jedi's duty to protect the innocent. Eventually, Revan and Malak broke from the Jedi Council, rallying thousands of Jedi to their cause. This splinter group, known as the Revanchists, defied orders and joined the Republic military effort, turning the tide of the war. Revan's brilliance on the battlefield and his unyielding leadership earned him the status of a galactic hero. Under his command, the Republic launched a series of successful counteroffensives, eventually defeating the Mandalorians at the climactic Battle of Malachor V. However, that victory came at a tremendous cost. Revan had built a superweapon known as the Mass Shadow Generator, which he used to devastate both Mandalorian and Republic forces alike, destroying the surface of Malachor V and killing tens of thousands in an instant. The sheer scale of destruction left scars not only on the planet, but on Revan's soul. The Mandalorian threat had ended, but something darker had taken root. In the aftermath, Revan and Malak disappeared into the unknown regions, ostensibly to hunt down the last remnants of the Mandalorian leadership. But what they discovered instead was a hidden Sith empire, ruled by the ancient and powerful Sith Emperor Vitiate. This encounter corrupted them both. Though the full nature of their transformation remains shrouded in mystery, when they returned to known space, they had become Sith Lords, Revan and Malak, intent on conquering the galaxy and imposing their own vision of order through strength. Thus began the Jedi Civil War, a brutal conflict where former Jedi now led Sith armies against their old comrades. Revan, once a symbol of heroism, became a figure of dread and awe. His forces, bolstered by a mysterious Star Forge, an ancient space station capable of producing vast fleets and armies, launched devastating campaigns against the Republic. Planet after planet fell under Sith control, and the Jedi Order suffered heavy losses. In a desperate move, the Jedi Council orchestrated a risky plan. A Jedi strike team ambushed Revan's flagship. During the confrontation, Malak betrayed his master, firing on Revan's ship to seize control of the Sith Empire. Severely wounded, Revan was rescued by the Jedi and his memories were erased. Reprogrammed with a new identity, he was given a chance at redemption. Guided by Jedi such as Bastila Shan, Revan gradually recovered fragments of his past and ultimately turned against Malak. In a final act of redemption, Revan defeated his former friend and destroyed the Star Forge, ending the Jedi Civil War. But the scars remained, on the Jedi Order, on the Republic, and on Revan himself. The war had left the Jedi Order deeply shaken. Thousands of Jedi had died, and many more had turned to the dark side, seduced by the power they wielded in wartime. The Council was blamed for its inaction during the Mandalorian Wars, and for failing to foresee Revan's fall. The public's faith in the Jedi waned. Internally, the Order faced an identity crisis. Were they peacekeepers or warriors? Should they obey the will of the Council or follow the will of the Force as they perceived it individually? Even more troubling was the philosophical divide that had formed. The Jedi who had followed Revan believed that the Council's strict adherence to passivity had allowed evil to flourish. Others maintained that Revan's fall proved the dangers of acting outside the Council's guidance. This rift would take centuries to fully heal, and in many ways it never did. The psychological trauma of the Jedi Civil War haunted the Order. Jedi who had fought in both wars suffered from guilt, disillusionment, and a loss of purpose. Some went into exile. Others questioned the very tenets of the Code. The events had shaken the foundational belief that the Jedi could resist the temptations of the dark side simply through discipline. Revan's fall had proven that even the most virtuous could be corrupted. In the broader galaxy, the aftershocks of the conflict lingered. Many systems remained in ruins. former Sith warlords and dark Jedi still posed threats on the fringes. The Republic, though victorious, was fragile and reeling from economic collapse, political instability, and widespread distrust of Jedi intervention. Despite all of this, Revan's legacy was not one of simple villainy. His eventual redemption, self-sacrifice, and determination to defeat the greater Sith threat in the unknown regions would inspire future generations. His story became a cautionary tale and a beacon of hope, proof that even those who fall can rise again. The legend of Revan would echo through Jedi temples, Sith archives, and the hearts of those who question the boundaries between light and dark. The Mandalorian Wars and the Jedi Civil War were among the most consequential events in galactic history. They reshaped the Jedi Order, sowed ideological seeds that would bloom centuries later, and produced one of the most compelling figures in Force history. Revan's journey from idealistic knight to fallen Sith Lord to redeemed hero remains a powerful reflection of the complexities of the Force, the fragility of conviction, and the eternal struggle for balance. The rise of the Sith Brotherhood and the Jedi Purge. Long after the devastating Jedi Civil War, the galaxy remained fraught with instability, and in the shadows of that chaos, the Sith were not only surviving, they were evolving. Out of the ashes of previous conflicts, a darker, more secretive form of Sith resurgence began, culminating in a movement that would bring the Jedi Order to the brink of extinction once again. This was the era of the Sith Brotherhood, a time of deception, resurgence, and unprecedented bloodshed, remembered grimly as the Jedi Purge. The Sith, thought defeated after Revan's redemption and the fall of Malak, were far from gone. Splinter factions of dark side users, warlords, and Sith cults, scattered across the galaxy, continued to thrive in isolation, especially in the unknown regions and on ancient Sith worlds like Korriban, Zeost, and Malachor. Many of these remnants preserved holocrons and teachings passed down from the original Sith Empire, nurturing hatred for the Jedi and waiting for the right time to strike. One such force of darkness took shape in the form of the Sith Triumvirate, led by three fearsome Sith Lords, Darth Traya, Darth Nihilus, and Darth Sion. These were not Sith in the traditional mold. They were fanatics twisted by pain, betrayal, and despair, and they represented three distinct aspects of the dark side. Darth Sion's body was held together by sheer rage and hatred. Darth Nihilus had become a near-ethereal wraith, a void in the Force that consumed life to survive, and Darth Traya, once known as Kreia, was a disillusioned Jedi Master who rejected both the Jedi and Sith, seeking instead to unmake the Force itself. The Triumvirate led a shadow campaign against the Jedi, assassinating Jedi Masters, destroying temples, and erasing entire enclaves without ever declaring open war. Their greatest weapon was secrecy. They didn't seek galactic domination like their predecessors. Instead, they aimed for annihilation. They hunted the Jedi in silence, spreading paranoia, confusion, and fear across the galaxy. Most Jedi never even saw their attackers. One by one, the light faded. The Order, once numbering in the thousands, was reduced to isolated survivors and scattered remnants. During this purge, the Jedi became phantoms. Temples once filled with wisdom and training fell silent. The Jedi archives, a treasury of knowledge built over millennia, were lost or corrupted. With no central leadership, the remaining Jedi were cut off from one another and often forced into hiding. Some abandoned their identities entirely, choosing exile or seclusion over certain death. The galaxy, still recovering from war, was too fragmented to help them, and in some places, the memory of the Jedi was smeared by Sith propaganda and fear. In the wake of this devastation emerged an unlikely figure, the Exile, a former Jedi Knight who had fought in the Mandalorian Wars and returned to the galaxy after years of silence. Her connection to the Force had been severed by choice or trauma, but her journey to reclaim that connection led her into direct conflict with the Sith Triumvirate. The Exile's path was one of healing, rediscovery, and redemption. Guided by both allies and visions of the past, she defeated Sion, Nihilus, and eventually Traya, striking a critical blow to the hidden Sith movement and giving the Jedi a sliver of hope. Yet, even after the fall of the Triumvirate, the Sith menace did not end. In fact, it would only grow more cunning and dangerous. Over time, Sith survivors came to embrace a more methodical and enduring approach. They learned from past mistakes, from infighting and overreach, and instead turned to manipulation, infiltration, and secrecy as their primary tools. The most significant result of this transformation was the creation of the Rule of Two by Darth Bane. Darth Bane, a dark-side philosopher and warrior, believed that the Brotherhood of the Sith, formed after the Jedi Civil War, had grown too numerous and weak. He viewed infighting and diluted power as the reason for the Sith's repeated failures. In response, he orchestrated the destruction of the Brotherhood itself during the thought bomb catastrophe on Ruisin, which killed thousands of Jedi and Sith alike. Emerging from the ashes, Bane declared a new doctrine. Two there should be, no more, no less. One to embody power, the other to crave it. This rule of two ensured that Sith knowledge and power would remain concentrated and focused, passed down through generations in secret. Each Sith Lord would train one apprentice in secrecy, ensuring continuity while avoiding discovery. Under this new Sith model, the dark side festered not on the battlefield, but in the shadows of politics and commerce. Sith Lords began to manipulate galactic events from behind the scenes. Over centuries, this lineage remained hidden, quietly orchestrating wars, collapses, and transitions in power, all while the Jedi Order gradually rebuilt. Unaware of the growing storm, this culminated in the rise of Darth Sidious, also known as Chancellor Palpatine, a master manipulator who would bring the Sith's long game to terrifying fruition during the final days of the Republic. By the time the Jedi sensed his presence, it was far too late. Sidious had engineered galactic war, turned the Republic against the Jedi, and embedded the Sith so deeply into the galactic structure that open confrontation seemed impossible without self-destruction. The Sith had not just returned, they had evolved, and the Jedi, weakened by centuries of attrition and internal conflict, were once again caught off guard. But the seeds of their downfall had been planted long before Order 66, back during the Mandalorian Wars, the Jedi Civil War, and especially during the Jedi Purge under the Sith Triumvirate. These dark chapters eroded the Jedi's numbers, strained their faith, and isolated survivors into fragmented outposts. The Jedi Purge was not a single event, but a slow, suffocating campaign that taught the Sith patience and precision. And through each iteration of destruction, the Jedi were forced to evolve or die. Some did both. What survived was not an intact order, but fragments of a once great legacy. Survivors, exiles, reluctant warriors, and cautious mentors scattered across the stars, waiting for the day when the Jedi would rise again. In the end, the rise of the Sith Brotherhood and the Jedi Purge represent one of the darkest and most harrowing chapters in the Jedi's long and storied history. They serve as a warning that evil does not always march in open conquest. It can wait, whisper, and weave its influence in silence. And it teaches us that survival alone is not enough. The Jedi must remain vigilant, adaptable, and above all, attuned to the shifting currents of the Force. The formation of the Jedi High Council. Throughout galactic history, the Jedi Order has been revered not only for its mastery of the Force, but also for its deeply rooted structure of leadership and governance. At the heart of this structure sits the Jedi High Council, the supreme governing body of the Jedi Order. From its formation during the early days of the Galactic Republic to its final days in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, the High Council stood as the Order's compass, spiritually, philosophically, and operationally. Its decisions shaped the galaxy's destiny, for better and for worse. The origins of the Jedi High Council trace back more than 25,000 years, when the Jedi first emerged as a coherent monastic order devoted to the study of the Force. In these early days, the Jedi were spread across the galaxy, scattered among enclaves and temples on various Force-rich worlds like Ahch-To, Tython, and Ossus. Each enclave followed its own regional traditions and interpretations of the Force. While the Jedi held shared values, peace, knowledge, harmony, they lacked a centralized authority to unite their teachings and actions. As the Jedi Order grew and the Galactic Republic was founded, the need for a unified leadership structure became increasingly clear. Jedi began to serve as advisors to Republic officials, mediators in planetary disputes, and peacekeepers in areas destabilized by crime syndicates and warlords. These responsibilities required a consistent philosophy and standard of conduct across the Order. Without it, the Jedi risked inconsistency and chaos. To address this, the most revered masters from across the Order gathered in what became the first convocation of the Jedi High Council. This initial council was composed of 12 Jedi Masters, chosen not for their power, but for their wisdom, clarity of thought, and dedication to the Jedi Code. Among the first were legendary figures such as Calla Bryn, Rajivari, and Thuru each, of whom brought a distinct vision of what the Jedi should become. The High Council was formalized as the Jedi Order's highest decision-making body, and its authority would expand in the centuries that followed. Over time, its headquarters moved to Coruscant, the Republic's capital, where the Jedi Temple was built as both a spiritual center and political hub. From this seat of power, the Jedi High Council would guide the Order's doctrines, training regimens, diplomatic missions, and responses to galactic threats. Structurally, the Jedi High Council consisted of 12 members, divided into 3 subgroups. The Inner Council, which dealt with sensitive matters such as the investigation of Sith activity or violations of the Jedi Code. The Middle Council focused on administrative tasks such as temple operations, archives, and relations with the Republic. The Outer Council, which oversaw field assignments, the Jedi Corps, and interactions with the broader galaxy. Though all members had equal votes, a Grand Master, usually the wisest and most senior among them, was often looked to for leadership. During the final days of the Republic, this role was held by Master Yoda, whose tenure spanned centuries. Alongside him were influential figures such as Mace Windu, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and Plo Koon, each representing different Jedi philosophies and priorities. The High Council's responsibilities were vast and complex. They interpreted the Jedi Code, mediated internal disputes, authorized missions, oversaw training at the Temple, and decided whether Jedi Knights were ready for promotion to the rank of Master. They also handled disciplinary actions, including rare cases of expulsion. Perhaps most importantly, they monitored disturbances in the Force, signs of imbalance, corruption, or the presence of the dark side. In this way, the Council served as the philosophical and operational heart of the Order. It was designed to be a model of collective wisdom, free of ego or ambition, where decisions were made only after deep meditation and consensus. Jedi Masters often meditated together for days before reaching a verdict, believing that impulsive decisions were more dangerous than inaction. However, the very structure that made the Council wise and deliberate also made it vulnerable to stagnation and rigidity. Over time, some critics within the Order felt that the High Council had grown too cautious, too disconnected from the galaxy's evolving needs. Their refusal to intervene early in the Mandalorian Wars, for example, led to division within the Order and paved the way for Revan's fall. Later, their failure to detect Darth Sidious, who operated within the Republic Senate itself, exposed the Council's over-reliance on tradition and detachment. Despite these missteps, the Council's influence endured for millennia. Its teachings guided the training of generations of Jedi, and its decisions shaped the galaxy through diplomacy, peacekeeping, and war. In times of crisis, the Council often stood as the final moral authority, sometimes even above the Republic's Senate. Their word was law within the Order, and their guidance was sought even by planetary leaders and Republic chancellors. The fall of the Jedi Order during the Clone Wars and the execution of Order 66 marked the tragic end of the Council's reign. In a single day, nearly every member of the High Council was executed by their own clone troops. Mace Windu fell in combat against Sidious. Kit Fisto and others were ambushed in the Chancellor's office, and Ki-Adi-Mundi was betrayed during battle. The chamber that once echoed with deep meditation and solemn wisdom fell silent. Yet, even in death, the Jedi High Council's legacy endured. Survivors like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda continued to uphold its teachings in exile. In the years following the Empire's fall, Luke Skywalker would draw upon the history and principles of the High Council as he attempted to rebuild the Order, though with a more flexible approach that acknowledged the flaws of the old structure. In retrospect, the High Council was both the greatest strength and occasional weakness of the Jedi. It represented the Order's loftiest ideals: collective wisdom, moral clarity, and spiritual leadership. but it also demonstrated the risks of becoming too institutionalized, too rooted in caution, and too slow to adapt in a galaxy that never stopped changing. Still, the formation and existence of the Jedi High Council marked a turning point in galactic civilization. It transformed the Jedi from scattered mystics into a unified order capable of guiding the Republic through centuries of both peace and peril. Its story is one of wisdom, discipline, triumph, and ultimately, tragedy. For as long as the Jedi exist, the High Council remains a symbol of what it means to lead with patience, to serve without domination, to uphold peace not by force but through balance, humility, and a profound connection to the living Force. The Jedi training system, Padawans and Knights. From the earliest days of the Jedi Order, the path to becoming a Jedi has never been a mere matter of strength or raw connection to the Force. It is a lifelong journey of discipline, study, humility, and inner balance. The Jedi training system, refined over thousands of years, represents one of the most rigorous and spiritual forms of education in the galaxy. Through this structured yet deeply personal path, a Force-sensitive child is transformed into a guardian of peace and justice. The training process consists of several distinct stages: Initiate, Padawan, Knight, and Master. Each phase marks not just a rank, but a profound developmental milestone in the Jedi's growth, both in their ability to wield the Force and in their emotional and moral maturity. Initiate stage, the younglings of the Order. Jedi training begins as early as infancy or toddlerhood. Children who exhibit Force sensitivity are identified across the galaxy through medical scans, observation, or the Force itself. Jedi recruiters, or Jedi seekers, travel from planet to planet to evaluate potential candidates. When a child is accepted into the Order, they are brought to a Jedi temple, most famously the temple on Coruscant, to begin training as initiates, also known as younglings. This stage typically lasts until a child is around 12 or 13 standard years old, though the exact duration varies. Younglings are grouped into clans, such as the Bear Clan or Dragon Clan, and study together under the supervision of Jedi instructors. They learn the basic tenets of the Jedi Code, galactic languages, history, diplomacy, ethics, and the philosophy of the Force. Even at this young age, younglings begin physical training as well. They learn the foundational principles of lightsaber combat, using training sabers under strict supervision. Importantly, this period emphasizes discipline, emotional awareness, and teamwork, ensuring the children are not only capable, but emotionally balanced and mentally centered. One of the most influential teachers for initiates during the last days of the Republic was Master Yoda, who personally guided many youngling clans. His guidance ensured that lessons were taught with a blend of wisdom, gentleness, and firm adherence to Jedi ideals. At the conclusion of this phase, the younglings must undergo the Initiate Trials, which test their comprehension of the Force, their understanding of the Jedi Code, and their personal growth. Those who pass are eligible to be selected by a Jedi Knight or Master as a Padawan learner. The Padawan stage, personalized training and field experience. The Padawan phase is perhaps the most formative and intense period in a Jedi's life. Padawans are paired one-on-one with a mentor, typically a Jedi Knight or Jedi Master, who oversees their personal development and training. This relationship is built on trust, guidance, and close companionship, often lasting many years and forming deep bonds. Padawans wear distinctive hairstyles or adornments to denote their rank. Most notably, humanoid Padawans commonly wear a Padawan braid, symbolizing their status as learners under a master's tutelage. The training of a Padawan includes both advanced studies at the temple and missions across the galaxy. These missions range from simple diplomatic tasks to complex peacekeeping operations. Through real-world experience, Padawans face moral dilemmas, confront their fears, and learn to balance action with wisdom. The goal is not merely to prepare them for combat, but to instill selflessness, compassion, and clarity. Lightsaber training becomes more refined in this stage, with each Padawan eventually constructing their own lightsaber after a pilgrimage to Ilum or a similar kyber crystal-rich planet. This gathering, a sacred rite of passage, involves locating a crystal through meditation and personal insight, symbolizing the Padawan's growing connection to the Force. Perhaps the most essential part of Padawan training is learning to confront and regulate emotion. Anger, fear, and attachment are addressed not through suppression but through understanding and discipline. Jedi are taught to feel emotion without allowing it to control them, a fine balance that, if lost, can open a path to the dark side. Padawan's journey culminates in the Jedi Trials, a series of rigorous tests designed to evaluate their readiness for knighthood. These trials are not always standardized. Some Jedi face literal tests set by the Council, while others experience personal, real-world challenges that serve the same purpose. The trials are traditionally divided into 5 core elements. The Trial of Skill, mastery of lightsaber combat and force techniques. The Trial of Courage, demonstrating bravery in the face of danger or overwhelming odds. The Trial of the Flesh, enduring personal pain or loss with resilience and wisdom. The Trial of Spirit, facing one's inner darkness or deepest fear through force-driven vision or meditation. The Trial of Insight, applying wisdom and intuition to solve complex moral or diplomatic challenges. Upon successful completion, the Padawan is granted the rank of Jedi Knight, often in a formal ceremony attended by the Council and peers. The Padawan braid is ceremonially cut, symbolizing the completion of their apprenticeship and the start of their life as a full-fledged Jedi. The Knight stage independence and service. Becoming a Jedi Knight marks the transition from learner to guardian. Knights are entrusted with full responsibilities of the Order, negotiating peace treaties, leading missions, training others, and defending the helpless. They often work independently, although some remain stationed at Jedi temples or travel in pairs for dangerous assignments. This is also a period of self-discovery and refinement. While the training is complete, a Knight continues to grow through experience. The choices they make, the missions they undertake, and the relationships they forge all shape the Jedi they will become. Some Knights eventually take on Padawans of their own, beginning the cycle anew. The life of a Jedi Knight is often lonely and demanding. The Jedi Code forbids attachment, and Knights are expected to prioritize duty over personal desire. Many are posted to remote planets for extended periods, or immersed in political strife, where their neutrality is constantly tested. Through all of this, the Jedi must remain true to the ideals of serenity, selflessness, and the pursuit of balance. The Master Stage, Wisdom and Leadership. The final and most honored rank is that of Jedi Master. Not all Knights become Masters. This title is reserved for those who have demonstrated exceptional leadership, insight, and service to the Order. Often, successfully training a Padawan to knighthood is a prerequisite, but the Council may also elevate a Knight who exemplifies extraordinary devotion to the Force and the Jedi Code. Masters often serve on councils, whether locally or on the High Council, and may become diplomats, instructors, or historians. They are responsible for shaping the philosophical direction of the Jedi Order, mentoring younger Jedi, and making decisions that affect the fate of systems, planets, or even the Republic itself. Mastery is not about power, it is about wisdom. The greatest Jedi Masters, such as Yoda, Bilaba, and Qui-Gon Jinn, displayed spiritual insight and moral clarity, sometimes even challenging the Council when necessary. True Masters understand that the Force cannot be dominated, it must be listened to, harmonized with, and trusted. In conclusion, the Jedi training system is not simply an educational track, it is a spiritual odyssey. From the wide-eyed curiosity of initiates to the tempered wisdom of masters, each stage builds upon the last, instilling virtues that define the Jedi as more than warriors. They are peacekeepers, philosophers, diplomats, and stewards of the Force. It is a path filled with challenges, loss, and the constant temptation of the dark side. But it is also a path of purpose, where every lesson, every trial, and every act of compassion brings the Jedi closer to balance, both within themselves and within the galaxy they vow to protect. The Clone Wars begin, Jedi as generals. For over 1,000 generations, the Jedi Order served as guardians of peace and justice in the Galactic Republic. Their role was never that of conquerors or soldiers, but of mediators, negotiators, and defenders of the innocent. But all of that changed with the outbreak of the Clone Wars, one of the bloodiest and most politically complex conflicts in galactic history. Almost overnight, the Jedi were forced to abandon their traditional roles and assume the mantle of military generals, a transition that would shake the very foundation of the Order and contribute to its eventual fall. The Clone Wars began in 22 BBY after years of political tension and manipulation orchestrated behind the scenes by Darth Sidious, the hidden Sith Lord masquerading as Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. Under his influence, the Confederacy of Independent Systems, CIS, was formed, led by former Jedi Master Count Dooku, now a Sith Lord known as Darth Tyrannus. The CIS rapidly amassed power, convincing thousands of star systems to secede from the Republic and building a vast military force of battle droids manufactured by the Techno-Union Trade Federation and Intergalactic Banking Clan. The Republic was caught unprepared. It had no standing army and lacked the infrastructure to wage war on a galactic scale. However, the sudden discovery of a clone army, secretly commissioned years earlier by Jedi Master Sifo Dyas and further manipulated by the Sith, provided a ready-made military force. Cloned from the DNA of the bounty hunter Jango Fett and trained on Kamino, this army was loyal, disciplined, and efficient. Faced with open war after the Battle of Geonosis, the Republic accepted the clone army into service. With no military chain of command in place and only the Jedi trusted across the galaxy, the Jedi Order was tasked with leading the war effort. Jedi became generals and commanders overnight, assigned to direct clone battalions in major campaigns across countless star systems. This shift was unprecedented and deeply uncomfortable for many within the Order. The Jedi were trained in the art of peace, not war. Their code stressed compassion, restraint, and harmony with the Force. War, by contrast, was chaotic, violent, and rooted in fear and aggression, the very emotions that the Jedi were taught to avoid. And yet, with little choice and the fate of the Republic at stake, the Jedi adapted. Initially, the Jedi saw their roles as guardians, leading a noble cause, defending the Republic and preserving the lives of innocent civilians. Their strong connection to the Force and exceptional combat skills made them natural field leaders, while their wisdom offered hope to a galaxy descending into chaos. Jedi like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, Aayla Secura, Plo Koon, and Ki-Adi-Mundi became respected figures on the battlefield, forging close relationships with their clone troops and gaining reputations as fearless, tactical minds. Yet beneath the surface, the Jedi's involvement in the war presented deep philosophical dilemmas. The Jedi Code forbade attachment, yet Jedi commanders found themselves forming strong bonds with their clones. Soldiers who referred to them as Sir and followed their every order. Jedi like Anakin Skywalker formed emotional attachments to clones like Captain Rex, struggling with the ethical burden of ordering men into battle. The line between camaraderie and attachment blurred. Moreover, the war pushed many Jedi to the edge of the dark side. The heat of battle demanded aggression, decisive action, and sometimes ruthlessness, qualities that conflicted with Jedi teachings. Jedi like Mace Windu, known for his Vapet fighting style that bordered on channeling the dark side, often walked dangerously close to moral ambiguity. Others, like Quinlan Vos, would later fall fully into the dark side during covert missions behind enemy lines. The war also created a rift within the Order. Some Jedi believed their involvement compromised their integrity, while others argued it was their duty to protect the Republic at all costs. This internal tension eroded the unity of the Council. Meanwhile, the Jedi Temple became a military hub, no longer solely a place of meditation and learning, but of tactical planning and war strategy. The Jedi archives were filled with mission data, and young Padawans were trained for combat instead of diplomacy. The transformation was not lost on the Republic or the public. Many in the Senate began to see the Jedi more as warriors than monks. Their once revered image as wise protectors gave way to political scrutiny, especially from senators like Palpatine, who subtly sowed distrust. Even among the clones, some began to question the Jedi's judgment, noting how different Jedi interpreted the war in vastly different ways. One of the most symbolic consequences of this militarization was the promotion of Anakin Skywalker to Jedi Knight and General. Though a hero in battle and admired by many, Anakin embodied the tension between Jedi ideals and wartime necessity. He was brash, emotional, and often defied the Council's instructions. His bond with Padme Amidala, kept secret, was emblematic of the Jedi's crumbling discipline, yet in battle few were more effective. The war also saw the rise of specialized Jedi military leadership. Jedi High Generals commanded entire sectors, while commanders and captains oversaw frontline squads. The Jedi took part in massive campaigns: Christophsis, Umbara, Ryloth, and the Outer Rim sieges, each more devastating than the last. The cumulative toll on the Jedi's psyche was enormous. Missions were constant, death was everywhere, and the toll of leading an army with little time for reflection or meditation slowly eroded the Jedi's spiritual core. Despite this, many Jedi continued to believe they could win the war and restore balance. The victories seemed to justify their involvement, but few realized the deeper truth. The Clone Wars had been engineered from the beginning. Darth Sidious controlled both sides, manipulating the Republic through his position as Chancellor and the Separatists through his apprentice Count Dooku. The Jedi were pawns in a grand Sith plan to destroy them not with force alone, but by corrupting their very purpose. By the war's final year, the Jedi were exhausted, diminished, and compromised. Their trust in the Force was clouded by doubt. The Jedi Council began suspecting a Sith conspiracy, but were too entangled in the war to act decisively. They placed a Jedi within the Chancellor's inner circle, Anakin Skywalker, but failed to foresee how close to darkness he had already drifted. Ultimately, the Jedi's role as generals played perfectly into Sidious's trap. They were painted as military leaders with too much influence. Their failure to end the war quickly fueled resentment in the Senate and among the people. When Order 66 was activated, the clones they had led for years turned on them without hesitation, executing the galaxy's once great guardians in cold blood. The transformation of the Jedi from peacekeepers to warriors was one of the most tragic evolutions in their history. In fighting for peace, they were slowly pulled away from it. In defending the Republic, they helped facilitate its transformation into an empire. And in becoming generals, they drifted further from the Force's true will. The Clone Wars did not merely destroy the Jedi physically, it compromised them spiritually, eroding the very values they were meant to uphold. And by the time the war ended, the Jedi were not only few in number, they were broken in purpose. Key Jedi figures of the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars were a galaxy-wide conflict that tested the limits of a Jedi Order, not just in terms of military strategy, but in philosophy, loyalty, and moral clarity. While the Jedi were thrust into unfamiliar roles as generals and warriors, a number of key individuals emerged as both champions of the light and cautionary examples of the Order's vulnerability. Their decisions, sacrifices, and downfalls shaped the fate of the Republic and laid the groundwork for the galaxy's darkest age. Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One in crisis. Anakin Skywalker was perhaps the most extraordinary figure to rise during the Clone Wars. Believed to be the Chosen One, prophesied to bring balance to the Force, Anakin's abilities were unparalleled. Discovered as a slave on Tatooine and trained reluctantly by Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin quickly proved himself to be a daring pilot, gifted warrior, and an unconventional yet brilliant Jedi. During the Clone Wars, he became a Jedi general, earning the respect of his troops for his boldness and unwavering loyalty. He frequently led from the front, often accomplishing the impossible. He formed a legendary partnership with Captain Rex, leading the 501st Legion through some of the war's most intense battles, including those on Christophsis, Umbara, and Coruscant. But Anakin's power was matched by his emotional instability. He struggled with fear of loss, attachment, and a growing distrust of the Jedi Council. His secret marriage to Padme Amidala, his protective instincts toward Ahsoka Tano, and the Council's refusal to grant him the rank of Master despite his accomplishments, planted the seeds of resentment and alienation. Ultimately, Anakin's fall into darkness, becoming Darth Vader, was not just the result of manipulation by Darth Sidious, but the culmination of internal conflict. His descent marked the beginning of the Jedi Order's destruction and the rise of the Empire. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the model Jedi Knight. A paragon of Jedi discipline, Obi-Wan Kenobi served as one of the Republic's most capable generals, and the conscience of the Order during the Clone Wars. Having trained Anakin Skywalker from boyhood, Obi-Wan bore the burden of responsibility for his former Padawan's development, constantly trying to balance mentorship with friendship. Obi-Wan became known as the negotiator for his diplomatic finesse, but he was also a formidable warrior, defeating enemies like General Grievous and battling Count Dooku multiple times. His tactical brilliance, calm demeanor, and unwavering adherence to the Jedi Code made him a symbol of Jedi integrity. Perhaps his most personal conflict arose during his campaign on Mandalore, where he was forced to confront his feelings for Duchess Satine, Crizzy, a woman he loved but never pursued due to Jedi obligations. Her death at the hands of Maul, formerly Darth Maul, deeply affected Obi-Wan and added to the personal toll the war had on him. In the aftermath of Anakin's fall, Obi-Wan would go into exile, watching over Luke Skywalker and carrying with him the sorrow of a mentor who lost his brother to darkness. Ahsoka Tano, the Padawan who walked away. Introduced during the Clone Wars as Anakin's Padawan, Ahsoka Tano was a Togruta with exceptional talent, curiosity, and independence. At first, she was met with skepticism, particularly from Anakin, who wasn't prepared to mentor a student. But over time, their bond became one of the most profound in Star Wars lore, one of mutual respect, affection, and shared burden. Ahsoka's growth as a Jedi was swift. She matured on the battlefield, survived deadly missions, and demonstrated immense courage and insight, often questioning the rigidity of the Jedi Code. Her perspective as a young Jedi during wartime offered a grounded critique of the Order's changing identity. The pivotal moment in her story came when she was falsely accused of bombing the Jedi Temple. Although later exonerated, the Jedi Council's hesitation to trust her revealed their growing detachment from justice and compassion. When offered the chance to rejoin the Order, Ahsoka walked away, refusing to return to an institution she no longer believed in. Her decision to leave the Jedi Order was a powerful moment, not of rejection of the Force, but of loyalty to its true principles. Ahsoka would later survive Order 66, assist in rebellion efforts, and become a symbol of what the Jedi could have been had they not been compromised by war. Mace Windu, the warrior and enforcer. Mace Windu, master of the Order and second only to Yoda in influence, embodied the Jedi Order's commitment to justice and control. Stoic, authoritative, and deeply principled, he wielded a unique purple lightsaber and was one of the few Jedi to master Vapad, a lightsaber form that bordered dangerously close to the dark side, but was used with incredible discipline. As a general, Windu commanded Republic forces during key battles, including the defense of Dantooine and the liberation of Ryloth. He was efficient and feared on the battlefield, and his presence alone often shifted the tide of war. In council chambers, he served as the Jedi's strongest voice for strict adherence to the Code and for vigilance against Sith threats. Yet Mace Windu's rigidity became both a strength and a weakness. He never fully trusted Anakin Skywalker, sensing danger in his emotions. When the truth about Palpatine's identity as Darth Sidious was revealed, Windu attempted to arrest the Chancellor and, recognizing the threat, tried to kill him, a decision that ultimately triggered Anakin's betrayal and Windu's own death. His fall highlighted the tragic irony of the Jedi's downfall. Even the most powerful and principled among them could not adapt quickly enough to the Sith's centuries-long strategy of deception. Yoda, the philosopher warrior. Yoda, Grand Master of the Jedi Order, was the embodiment of ancient wisdom and serenity. With centuries of experience, he trained generations of Jedi, including Dooku, Luke Skywalker, and many members of the High Council. During the Clone Wars, he became a wartime commander, reluctantly, understanding the conflict as a tragic consequence of galactic imbalance. Yoda participated in pivotal battles, such as the liberation of Kashyyyk, and frequently counseled the Jedi Council on how best to remain true to the Force. However, even Yoda struggled to sense the shadow of Sidious. The dark side had clouded everything, even for the wisest of Jedi. Haunted by failure after Order 66 and his duel with Sidious in the Senate chamber, Yoda exiled himself to Dagobah, where he would later train Luke Skywalker and pass on the last of the Old Order's wisdom. Other notable figures. Kit Fisto, a Nautolan Jedi Master known for his combat skill and optimism. Kit Fisto led numerous underwater missions and fought bravely during the war. He fell alongside Mace Windu during the attempted arrest of Palpatine. Plo Koon, a Keldor Jedi revered for his wisdom and compassion, he discovered Ahsoka Tano and was beloved by his clone troops. Plo Koon's death during Order 66 was one of many quiet betrayals that ended the Order. Tagrata Master, with deep knowledge of the Force, she oversaw the clone training on Kamino and often warned of the clones' complexity. Her fate remains ambiguous in some versions of canon, but represents the growing unease among Jedi leadership. Luminara Unduli and Barriss Offee. This Master Padawan pair exemplified the traditional Jedi relationship, though it ended in tragedy when Barriss turned against the Jedi and orchestrated the bombing that led to Ahsoka's trial. Her disillusionment with the Order foreshadowed its collapse from within. The Clone Wars were not just a test of strength. They were a crucible for the Jedi's soul. Through figures like Anakin, Ahsoka, Windu, and Yoda, we witness the multifaceted nature of the Jedi. Courageous yet flawed, compassionate yet burdened, powerful yet often uncertain. These individuals not only shaped the war, they embodied its contradictions. Their legacies endure beyond the battlefield, offering lessons of hope, failure, and what it truly means to follow the Force. The Jedi and the Sith, the duel of Anakin and Darth Sidious. The Clone Wars had devastated the galaxy. Countless star systems were engulfed in battle, billions had perished, and the Jedi, once venerated as peaceful guardians, had become wartime generals, stretched thin and morally frayed. Yet beneath the visible chaos of war, a much deeper and darker game was being played. At its center stood two pivotal figures, an Anakin Skywalker, the prophesied Chosen One, and Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord who had orchestrated the galaxy's descent into conflict. Their confrontation would become one of the most consequential turning points in galactic history. The seeds of Anakin's fall were sown long before the Clone Wars reached their climax. From his earliest days, Anakin struggled with emotional attachments. His love for his mother, Shmi Skywalker, and later his secret marriage to Padme Amidala were bonds he never learned to regulate within the Jedi framework. Unlike most Jedi, who were raised from infancy in the Order, Anakin had been introduced to the Jedi lifestyle far later, already shaped by personal experience and loss. This emotional vulnerability made him both extraordinarily compassionate and dangerously susceptible to fear, anger, and guilt. During the war, Anakin's reputation grew. He became a hero among the clones, a figurehead of Republic strength, and a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield. But even as his legend rose, his inner conflict deepened. His victories came at great cost, and his bond with Padme, though loving, was plagued by secrecy and anxiety. Visions of her dying in childbirth began to haunt him, nightmarish echoes that mirrored his prophetic dreams of his mother's death, which had come true despite his efforts. Into this internal storm stepped Chancellor Palpatine, Anakin's longtime political ally and confidant. Unknown to all but the Sith, Palpatine was Darth Sidious, the shadow architect behind the Clone Wars and the Separatist movement. For years, he had subtly manipulated Anakin, offering praise when the Jedi withheld it, support when they questioned him, and trust when others gave him doubt. Palpatine had carefully cultivated a mentor-like bond with Anakin, filling the void left by the increasingly rigid and mistrustful Jedi Council. As Anakin's fear of losing Padme intensified, Palpatine revealed his true identity, not directly as Darth Sidious, but by alluding to Sith powers capable of saving life, referencing the ancient Sith legend of Darth Plagueis the Wise, a Sith who supposedly discovered the secret to preventing death. This story, seductive and deliberately placed, struck directly at Anakin's most vulnerable spot, the desire to save his wife. Palpatine didn't need to force Anakin's loyalty, he simply offered him the illusion of control over fate. Eventually, Palpatine revealed himself to be the Sith Lord the Jedi had been seeking. Torn between loyalty to his friend and duty to the Order, Anakin reported the revelation to Mace Windu, who moved quickly to arrest the Chancellor. What followed was a fateful moment, a confrontation in the Chancellor's office, where Windu and a small Jedi strike team attempted to bring Sidious to justice. Sidious unleashed his full power, quickly dispatching Windu's Jedi allies and engaging Windu in a ferocious duel. Despite the Sith Lord's immense strength, Windu managed to disarm him and prepared to deliver a killing blow. But Anakin, arriving just in time, faced a devastating choice. If Sidious died, so too would the only knowledge Anakin believed could save Padme. In a moment of desperation and betrayal, Anakin struck down Mace Windu, aiding the Sith Lord and condemning himself. This single act severed Anakin's identity as a Jedi. In the immediate aftermath, Sidious declared, "You shall be known henceforth as Darth Vader." In that moment, Anakin's fate was sealed, not as the chosen one destined to bring balance, but as a fallen hero who would plunge the galaxy into darkness. Sidious executed Order 66, a command embedded in clone troopers across the Republic, triggering a galaxy-wide extermination of the Jedi. Newly christened as Darth Vader, Anakin's first task was one of the most horrific in Jedi history, the assault on the Jedi Temple. Leading the 501st Legion, he entered the very heart of Jedi civilization and slaughtered his own brethren, including younglings who had once looked up to him. The pain and trauma of this act permanently fractured what remained of his former self. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda, two of the few surviving Jedi, went into hiding. When Obi-Wan discovered Anakin's betrayal, it devastated him. Their bond had been like brothers. His heart broken but duty clear, Obi-Wan confronted Anakin on the volcanic planet Mustafar, where Vader had gone to destroy the Separatist leadership on Sidious's orders, further consolidating Sith control. The confrontation between master and former apprentice was tragic and unforgettable. Obi-Wan pleaded with Anakin to see reason, to remember who he was. But Anakin, now fully immersed in the Sith's ideology, believed the Jedi had betrayed the Republic and conspired to take power. The battle that followed was one of the most intense in Star Wars history, raw, emotional, and cataclysmic. As they dueled across the hellish landscape of Mustafar, lava churning around them, Obi-Wan ultimately gained the upper hand. With a single devastating strike, he severed Anakin's limbs and left him burning, broken, and defeated. Obi-Wan, in anguish, told him, "You were the chosen one. It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them. Bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness." Unable to finish his former friend, Obi-Wan took Anakin's lightsaber and left him behind, retreating with Padme, who had witnessed the horror. Soon after, Sidious arrived, rescuing what little remained of Anakin. Through advanced cybernetic reconstruction and Sith alchemy, Darth Vader was born again, encased in the black armor, mask, and life support system that would become synonymous with fear. At the same time, Padme, heartbroken by Anakin's fall, gave birth to Luke and Leia Skywalker, then died. Whether from physical trauma or a broken heart is uncertain. Sidious, seizing the moment, declared the Republic reformed into the Galactic Empire, with himself as Emperor. With the Jedi exterminated and his new apprentice reborn, Sidious had finally achieved what the Sith had sought for generations: total galactic control. The fall and the meaning of balance. Many have debated whether Anakin was truly the chosen one. His fall was catastrophic, but his later redemption, sparked decades later by the actions of his son Luke Skywalker, would ultimately lead to Sidious's defeat, suggesting that even in tragedy, there was a path back to balance. But during the Clone Wars and the fall of the Jedi, the line between light and dark blurred in painful ways. The Jedi, manipulated into a war they couldn't win, fell from within. Anakin, corrupted by fear and love, became the very thing he was meant to destroy. And Sidious, through patience and deceit, proved that the most dangerous weapon was not the lightsaber, but a lie believed in desperation. The duel between Jedi and Sith was not simply a battle of strength or philosophy. It was a battle for the soul of the galaxy. And in the moment Anakin fell, the galaxy fell with him. Order 66 and the Great Jedi Purge. The Jedi Order, guardians of peace for over 1,000 generations, was undone not by war or battle, but by betrayal. With a single command, a hidden plan decades in the making was set into motion. This event, known across the galaxy as Order 66, marked the beginning of the Great Jedi Purge, one of the darkest chapters in galactic history. In the span of a few hours, a powerful institution that had stood for millennia was reduced to ashes. The fall was swift, surgical, and nearly absolute. The clones and the hidden protocol. The Jedi had fought alongside the clone troopers for the duration of the Clone Wars. They were comrades in arms, forged in fire across brutal campaigns like Umbara, Ryloth, Felucia, and Megiddo. Jedi often grew close to their clones. Nicknames like Commander Cody, Captain Rex, and Commander Bly became as familiar as fellow Jedi. But what the Jedi never suspected was that the clone army harbored a deadly secret embedded deep within their genetic code. This secret was Contingency Order 66, one of 150 classified orders programmed into the clones as part of their obedience protocols. While these orders were portrayed as measures to protect the Republic, Order 66 specifically instructed clones to treat Jedi as traitors to the Republic and eliminate them on sight. Unknown to the Jedi, this command had a physical trigger, a biochip surgically implanted into every clone during fetal development on Kamino. The chip ensured total compliance, removing any possibility of hesitation or refusal. The chips were not understood even by the Kaminoans themselves, who considered them a standard part of the inhibitor suite and saw the clones' loyalty as part of their design. Only a few clones, such as Fives, began to question their true purpose. Fives discovered the biochip's function, but was ultimately killed before his warnings could reach the Jedi Council. The Jedi Council. The moment the galaxy changed. On the day that Darth Sidious, posing as Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, was confronted by Jedi Master Mace Windu, the Sith Lord struck. After Anakin Skywalker turned against the Jedi and aided in Windu's death, Sidious unleashed the final phase of his master plan. With calm authority, he issued the command, Execute Order 66. Across the galaxy, the loyal clone soldiers turned on their Jedi commanders. These betrayals were not acts of rage or emotion. They were the result of cold, programmed obedience. Jedi Masters, Knights, and Padawans alike were gunned down by those they had fought beside for years. The betrayal was immediate, efficient, and merciless. On Utapau, Obi-Wan Kenobi was blasted off a cliff by Commander Cody, moments after receiving his lightsaber back. Obi-Wan barely survived the fall and faked his death to escape. On Felucia, Aayla Secura was shot in the back by her clones without warning as she walked ahead of them in peaceful formation. On Saleucami, Stas Ali was ambushed and killed while riding her speeder. On Megiddo, Ki-Adi Mundi, charging into battle with his clone forces, was abruptly turned on and shot in the chest before he could ignite his lightsaber. On Kashyyyk, Yoda sensed the shift in the Force just in time to decapitate the clones attempting to kill him. Jedi who had survived countless battles were now caught off guard by their own troops they had mentored, healed, and trusted. Entire generations of Jedi knowledge were lost in an instant. Temples were desecrated, archives were destroyed. Hope, it seemed, was extinguished. The Temple Massacre and the Fall of the Jedi Heart. While Order 66 was being carried out across the galaxy, Darth Vader, formerly Anakin Skywalker, was sent to do the unthinkable, eliminate all Jedi within the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Accompanied by the 501st Legion, now known as Vader's Fist, he stormed the temple in a horrific assault that became known as the Jedi Temple Massacre. The slaughter was indiscriminate. Masters, knights, and even younglings were murdered without hesitation. The sight of Vader igniting his lightsaber in front of frightened children is one of the most haunting moments in Jedi history. The temple's ancient halls, once filled with meditation, wisdom, and learning, became a blood-soaked tomb. Even hologrons and sacred relics were destroyed or stolen by the Sith. When Obi-Wan later returned to the temple under cover, the devastation was beyond comprehension. Security footage confirmed the truth. Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, had become the instrument of the Jedi's extinction. Aftermath: a galaxy without the Jedi. With the Jedi Order effectively destroyed, Chancellor Palpatine addressed the Galactic Senate, blaming the Jedi for an attempted coup and declaring them enemies of the state. Amid thunderous applause, he proclaimed the birth of a new regime, the Galactic Empire. In order to ensure the security and continuing stability, he said, the Republic will be reorganized into the First Galactic Empire for a safe and secure society. The Senate, weary of war and still under the illusion that the Jedi had turned traitor, cheered. Democracy died with applause. With one speech, the Sith claimed both political power and moral justification. The Jedi were not mourned, they were vilified. The Jedi who survived. Despite the carnage, a few Jedi managed to escape. These survivors either went into exile or continued fighting in secret. Obi-Wan Kenobi took Padme Amidala to safety and watched over the birth of Luke and Leia Skywalker before going into hiding on Tatooine. Yoda, after failing to defeat Darth Sidious in a climactic duel in the Senate chamber, retreated to the swampy world of Dagobah, concealing himself from all detection. Ahsoka Tano, no longer a member of the Jedi Order, narrowly escaped Order 66 with Captain Rex after removing his inhibitor chip. Other Jedi, like Kanan Jarrus, Quinlan Vos, and Cal Kestis, would survive in scattered corners of the galaxy, many haunted and hunted by their past. The Jedi Purge and the rise of the Inquisitors. With the war over and the Empire established, Order 66 was only the beginning. The Great Jedi Purge continued under Sidious's new apprentice, Darth Vader. Surviving Jedi were hunted relentlessly by a special group of dark-side agents known as the Inquisitorius. Fallen Jedi trained in torture, assassination, and fear, these Inquisitors, including the Grand Inquisitor, Second Sister, and Fifth Brother, tracked down hidden Jedi and forced sensational children, ensuring that no one could threaten the Sith's dominance. The few remaining Jedi were forced into lives of secrecy. Some laid down their sabers and tried to disappear. Others, like Obi-Wan and Yoda, waited for a future that might rekindle the flame of the Jedi way. The galaxy grew darker, the Force grew quieter, and myths began to replace memory. The legacy of the Purge? The true tragedy of Order 66 wasn't just the loss of life. It was the loss of hope, balance, and truth. A generation of knowledge was burned away. Children who might have become healers, scholars, or protectors were murdered before they could even understand what the Force was. The Jedi, who had stood for thousands of years, were remembered not as heroes, but as traitors. Yet even in this dark time, the Force had not abandoned the galaxy. The light survived, flickering in secret. It lived in Luke and Leia, in the remnants of teachings buried deep in forgotten temples, and in the memories of those few who escaped. Darth Sidious had won the war, but not yet the soul of the galaxy. Because as long as the Force endured, so too did the possibility of redemption, the survival of Jedi in the formation of the Rebel Alliance. In the wake of Order 66, the Jedi Order was all but annihilated. Thousands of Jedi were cut down by clone troopers who had once stood beside them as comrades and brothers in arms. The Great Jedi Purge, led by Darth Vader and the Inquisitorius, ensured that few would escape the reach of the newly formed Galactic Empire. Yet despite the odds and the crushing tide of darkness, a handful of Jedi survived. Those who did went into exile, scattered across the galaxy like dying stars in an expanding void. Though their presence faded, their influence did not. In secret, they watched, waited, and planted the first seeds of resistance that would one day blossom into the Rebel Alliance. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the watchful guardian of Tatooine. Of all the Jedi who survived Order 66, Obi-Wan Kenobi bore perhaps the greatest burden. He had not only lived through the Temple Massacre and the betrayal of the clones, he had also watched his former Padawan and closest friend, Anakin Skywalker, fall to the dark side and become Darth Vader. The duel on Mustafar left Anakin physically broken and spiritually lost, and left Obi-Wan with a haunting sense of failure. After assisting Padme Amidala in escaping Mustafar, Obi-Wan helped her give birth to twins, Luke and Leia Skywalker, before she passed away, broken by grief. Realizing that these children represented the last hope for the future, Obi-Wan agreed to take Luke to Anakin's homeworld of Tatooine, placing him in the care of Owen and Beru Lars, Anakin's step-family. Obi-Wan then retreated into the Jundland wastes, adopting the alias Ben Kenobi. From a distance, he watched over Luke as he grew up, ensuring his safety without revealing the boy's true identity. Haunted by the past, Obi-Wan's years on Tatooine were marked by solitude and quiet vigilance. He struggled with the fading connection to the Force and the weight of his perceived failures. Yet he never lost sight of his mission: protect Luke at all costs and prepare him one day to face the darkness. During this time, Obi-Wan communicated sporadically with Yoda and attempted to commune with the spirit of Qui-Gon Jinn, his former master, who had unlocked the secret of manifesting as a Force ghost after death. This training would allow Obi-Wan to eventually transcend death and continue to guide Luke even after his physical demise. Yoda, the hermit sage of Dagobah. Yoda, the Grand Master of the Jedi Order, had also survived Order 66 by escaping an ambush on Kashyyyk with the help of the Wookiees, including his loyal ally Chewbacca. After a failed attempt to defeat Darth Sidious in the Senate chamber on Coruscant, Yoda realized that the Sith had grown too powerful to be overcome through direct confrontation. Instead, he chose exile. Yoda fled to Dagobah, a remote and swampy planet rich in natural Force energy. The darkness of a nearby cave, imbued with the dark side, helped to cloak his presence, making him invisible to the Sith's Force sensory agents. In solitude, Yoda meditated, studied the Force, and waited for a future in which the Jedi might rise again. Though hidden, Yoda's influence endured. He maintained limited contact with Obi-Wan and served as a spiritual anchor for the scattered remnants of Jedi philosophy. His ultimate purpose was clear: to train the next generation of Jedi, if and when the time came. Other Jedi survivors and their hidden struggles. While Obi-Wan and Yoda were the most prominent survivors, other Jedi endured as well, though many were forced to suppress their identities, sever their ties to the Force, and live in constant fear of discovery. Ahsoka Tano, though no longer a formal Jedi, played a critical role in post-war events. After escaping Order 66 with Captain Rex, she dropped out of galactic affairs for years before resurfacing under the alias Fulcrum, working as an intelligence agent for early rebel cells. Ahsoka's perspective, no longer bound by the strict codes of the Order, allowed her to become a bridge between Force users and the growing rebellion. Cal Kestis, a young Padawan who survived the Purge by hiding as a scrapper, eventually rekindled his connection to the Force. His journey, documented during the Imperial era, involved restoring ancient Jedi knowledge and protecting Force-central children from the Empire's reach. Kanan Jarrus, another Padawan-turned-survivor, changed his name from Caleb Dume and lived in obscurity until meeting Hera Syndulla, a Twi'lek rebel. Kanan eventually trained Ezra Bridger, a young Force-sensitive boy from Lothal, becoming part of the rebel cell known as the Ghost Crew. His path, like many others, was shaped by secrecy, tragedy, and a quiet resilience that echoed the Jedi legacy. These survivors were hunted relentlessly by the Inquisitorius, a dark organization created by Darth Sidious and led by Darth Vader himself. Comprised of fallen Jedi twisted into dark-side enforcers, the Inquisitors, like the Grand Inquisitor, second sister, and fifth brother, pursued any remaining Jedi or Force-sensor child, leaving destruction in their wake. The Jedi and the birth of rebellion. Though the Jedi survivors were scattered and broken, they helped lay the ideological and tactical foundation for the Rebel Alliance. The early resistance took many forms: disparate cells like Saw Gerrera's partisans, Bail Organa's Alderaanian network, and Mon Mothma's senators in secret. While not all rebels were aligned with the Jedi, the principles of freedom, justice, and defiance of tyranny were at the heart of their movement, principles the Jedi had once embodied. Bail Organa, who had adopted Leia Organa and knew the truth of her parentage, maintained ties with both Yoda and Obi-Wan. He worked quietly to build a network of sympathetic senators and military leaders, preparing for a coordinated push against the Empire. Ahsoka, under her Fulcrum identity, became one of the key organizers behind Phoenix Squadron, a rebel fleet that eventually joined with larger factions. Her deep understanding of both Jedi philosophy and the Empire's tactics made her an invaluable asset. Through her, Force-sensitive individuals and ex-Jedi found safe passage and purpose once more. Some Jedi chose not to fight, believing the time was not yet right. Others died trying to reignite the spark, But the survivors, all of them, played roles in keeping the Jedi legacy alive long enough for Luke Skywalker to rise. The Jedi flame, though flickering, had not been extinguished. The Jedi legacy in the rebellion. Though the Jedi had largely vanished from public life, their legend persisted, shrouded in myth, whispered in secret, and preserved in the hearts of those they had touched. The Empire worked hard to erase their memory, labeling them traitors, banning their teachings, and destroying their temples. Yet the idea of the Jedi remained powerful, especially among those oppressed by the Empire's rule. For those who knew the truth, the Jedi were never gone. They were waiting. When the time came and Obi-Wan delivered Luke Skywalker his father's lightsaber, the torch was passed. The Jedi were no longer generals in a war, but whispers of hope in a time of fear. The survival of even a few meant that the Force still had champions, and that the dark could not rule forever. The Jedi in Exile, Luke Skywalker's journey. The fall of the Jedi Order left a void that echoed across the galaxy. As the Empire ruled with fear and tyranny, the memory of the Jedi became a myth, whispers of ancient warriors who once protected the Republic, now extinguished. But the Force had not gone silent. Amid the darkness, hope endured in the form of Luke Skywalker, a farm boy from Tatooine who would grow into the galaxy's last Jedi and its greatest chance for redemption. Luke's journey was not one of immediate mastery or inherited wisdom. He did not grow up in the Jedi Temple, surrounded by masters and sacred teachings. Instead, he was raised by Owen and Beru Lars, humble moisture farmers, under the watchful eye of Obi-Wan Kenobi, who lived in secret as Ben Kenobi. Though unaware of his lineage, Luke inherited not only his father's strength in the Force, but his restlessness and thirst for something greater. The call to adventure. Luke's journey began in earnest when he encountered R2-D2, carrying a secret message from Princess Leia Organa, his twin sister, though neither knew it yet. The message, a plea for help from Obi-Wan Kenobi, triggered a chain of events that would forever alter his destiny. After the brutal murder of his aunt and uncle by Imperial stormtroopers, Luke chose to leave Tatooine, stepping into a galaxy he had only dreamed of. Under Obi-Wan's guidance, Luke took his first steps into the world of the Jedi. He received his father's lightsaber, once wielded by Anakin Skywalker, and began to learn the principles of the Force. But his training was cut short when Obi-Wan sacrificed himself during the rescue of Leia on the Death Star, allowing Luke and his allies to escape. Despite this early loss, Obi-Wan's spirit remained with Luke, guiding him as a Force ghost. Luke joined the Rebel Alliance and played a key role in the destruction of the first Death Star, a triumph that marked him as a hero, but one still far from the wisdom and discipline of a Jedi Knight. Training on Dagobah. Haunted by his inexperience and seeking to better understand his power, Luke traveled to Dagobah, following the guidance of Obi-Wan's spirit. There he met Yoda, now an old and exiled master, living in solitude. At first, Luke failed to recognize the small, eccentric creature as the legendary Jedi Grand Master. But Yoda, testing Luke's patience and humility, eventually revealed his identity and agreed to train him. Dagobah was unlike any place Luke had ever known. The swampy, force-rich environment challenged him both physically and spiritually. Yoda's training was not about combat. It was about control, discipline, and facing fear. Luke struggled, often frustrated by the abstract nature of Yoda's teachings. But one lesson stood out above all. Do or do not, there is no try. Luke's most profound trial came when he entered the Dark Side Cave, a nexus of shadow within Dagobah. There, he faced a vision of Darth Vader, only to strike him down and see his own face behind the mask. The message was clear. The darkness he feared existed not only in Vader, but in himself. The choice to confront Vader. Luke's training was incomplete when he chose to leave Dagobah, believing his friends Leia, Han, and Chewbacca were in danger on Cloud City. Yoda warned him he wasn't ready, and that rushing to face Vader could lead him to the same fate as his father. But Luke, ever impulsive and loyal, chose to act. The confrontation with Darth Vader was shattering. Not only was Luke outmatched physically, but the truth Vader revealed broke him mentally. "I am your father." Anakin Skywalker, the heroic Jedi turned Sith Lord, was Luke's father. The truth crushed Luke's idealism and sense of identity. He refused to join Vader and chose to fall from the floating city rather than embrace the dark side. Surviving only through fate and the Force, Luke was rescued but forever changed. Redemption through the Force. In the final days of the Galactic Civil War, Luke matured into a Jedi in spirit if not in full rank. He returned to Dagobah only to find Yoda dying. With his last breath, Yoda confirmed the truth. Vader was indeed Luke's father, and told him that his training was complete, but that he had one final test, to confront Vader again and resist the temptation of the dark side. Luke's final trial came aboard the second Death Star, where he willingly surrendered himself to the Empire, in hopes of turning his father back to the light. Emperor Palpatine, now fully revealed as Darth Sidious, attempted to seduce Luke with promises of power and fear. When Sidious threatened to kill his friends and mocked the Jedi, Luke finally drew his saber and fought Vader in a brutal, emotional duel. In the end, Luke overpowered his father, slicing off his hand, only to see the same mechanical hand he himself bore. In that moment of clarity, Luke threw away his lightsaber and declared, "I am a Jedi, like my father before me." It was this refusal to give in, this act of compassion and restraint, that redeemed Anakin Skywalker. Seeing his son tortured by Sidious, the good that remained in Anakin broke free. He seized the Emperor and threw him into the Death Star's reactor shaft, sacrificing his life to save his son and destroy the Sith. Luke carried his dying father to safety, removing his mask to see the man inside. With his final breath, Anakin Skywalker returned to the light. In that moment, the prophecy of the Chosen One was fulfilled, not through conquest, but through love. The attempt to rebuild the Jedi Order. After the fall of the Empire and the victory at Endor, Luke embarked on a new mission, to rebuild the Jedi Order. He traveled the galaxy seeking out ancient Jedi texts, lost temples, and Force-sensitive individuals. His vision was to create an order that learned from the mistakes of the past, one that embraced compassion, balance, and openness rather than dogma. Luke founded a Jedi temple and began training a new generation of Jedi. Among his students was his nephew, Ben Solo, the son of Leia Organa and Han Solo. Ben was powerful but also conflicted, torn between light and dark, much like his grandfather before him. Luke sensed growing darkness in Ben. In a moment of fear, Luke considered striking him down in his sleep, believing he might fall to the dark side, but he hesitated. Too late, Ben awoke, misinterpreting Luke's presence as betrayal. Enraged, Ben destroyed the temple, killed Luke's other students, and fled, becoming Kylo Ren, apprentice to Supreme Leader Snoke. Devastated, Luke blamed himself and exiled himself to the remote planet of Ahch-To, the site of the first Jedi Temple. There, he cut himself off from the Force, believing the Jedi had failed and that their time had passed. The light, it seemed, had dimmed once again. Legacy and the return of hope. But hope did not die. The Force moved through Rey, a young scavenger strong with the Force, who sought Luke out, believing he could save the Resistance. At first, Luke refused to train her, fearing another failure. But Rey's determination and the galaxy's growing despair under the First Order stirred something in him. In the end, Luke made one final stand. Using the Force in a powerful display of projection, he appeared across the galaxy to confront Kylo Ren on Crate, buying the Resistance time to escape. His peaceful defiance inspired a new generation and restored faith in the Jedi. Exhausted, Luke vanished into the Force, becoming one with it, like Obi-Wan and Yoda before him. His final act was not of aggression, but of selfless sacrifice. He became a legend, not just of the Jedi, but of courage and conviction. Conclusion: the Jedi will rise again. Luke Skywalker's journey from orphaned farm boy to galactic savior was not without mistakes, doubts, or loss. He stumbled, he failed, but he never stopped trying to do what was right. His life embodied the essence of the Jedi, not perfect, but driven by hope, empathy, and the enduring light of the Force. Though the Jedi Order had been broken, Luke's legacy proved that the Jedi spirit could never truly be extinguished. Through Rey and those who carry the Force, the Jedi live on, not as relics of a forgotten age, but as beacons for the future, the Jedi legacy and the new Jedi Order. The saga of the Jedi did not end with the fall of the Galactic Empire and the redemption of Anakin Skywalker. After the devastating losses of the original Jedi Order and the Empire's collapse, the galaxy was ready for a new dawn. The torch of hope was carried forward by Luke Skywalker, who sought to rebuild the Jedi Order anew. But rebuilding an ancient institution scarred by betrayal, failure, and tragedy would prove to be one of the greatest challenges in galactic history. The new Jedi Order's rise was marked by hope, but its fall was haunted by betrayal and the shadow of an ancient Sith cult. The Sith Eternal. Rebuilding the Jedi, the birth of the new order. Following the death of Emperor Palpatine and the collapse of the Empire, Luke Skywalker dedicated himself to restoring the Jedi Order. He envisioned a new generation of Jedi trained not only in the ways of the Force, but grounded in compassion, understanding, and balance. This order would seek to avoid the dogmatic rigidity that contributed to the original Order's downfall, striving instead for a more flexible, inclusive approach to the Force. Luke's Jedi Temple became a sanctuary on an undisclosed planet, serving as a beacon for Force-sensitive individuals across the galaxy. Many young recruits arrived, some strong with the Force, others seeking knowledge or refuge. Luke trained these initiates rigorously, imparting lessons learned from his own struggles with temptation, loss, and fear. Among his most promising students was his nephew Ben Solo, son of Leia Organa and Han Solo. Gifted but troubled, Ben was initially seen as the future of the Jedi Order. Luke's hopes for him were high, and his potential to bring balance to the Force seemed assured. Ben Solo's fall and the destruction of the Temple. Despite Luke's careful teaching, Ben Solo's training was fraught with darkness. Manipulated from afar by Supreme Leader Snoke, a mysterious dark-side entity who was later revealed to be a puppet of the ancient Sith Emperor Palpatine, Ben was seduced by the allure of power and vengeance. The Sith Eternal, a secret cult of loyalists to the Sith, operated in the shadows, orchestrating this fall. Luke's fear and hesitation led to a critical failure. Believing Ben might succumb fully to the dark side, Luke contemplated striking him down preemptively, but hesitated. This hesitation shattered Ben's trust, fueling his resentment and accelerating his transformation into Kylo Ren, leader of the dark side faction. In a devastating betrayal, Kylo Ren turned against his fellow students, destroying the Jedi Temple and slaughtering many of Luke's apprentices. This catastrophic event shattered the new Jedi Order before it could truly flourish. Luke, burdened by guilt and despair, chose self-exile on the remote island world of Ahch-To, the site of the first Jedi Temple. The Sith Eternal and the return of Palpatine. While the galaxy focused on the conflicts between the Resistance and the First Order, a darker force gathered strength in the shadows. The Sith Eternal, a clandestine cult loyal to the Sith, had been operating in secret for decades on the hidden world of Exile. The Sith Eternal were guardians of ancient Sith knowledge, Sith relics, and cloning technology. Their purpose was clear: to restore the Sith to ultimate power. Through their efforts, a clone or spirit of Emperor Palpatine was preserved, allowing him to return from apparent death and seize control once more. This Sith resurgence posed a dire threat to the fragile New Republic and the surviving Jedi. The Sith Eternal marshaled vast fleets and Sith assassins, seeking to extinguish the light and establish a new Sith empire. The conflict between the new Jedi and the Sith Eternal. Though Luke had withdrawn into exile, the threat of the Sith Eternal forced the galaxy's remaining heroes to confront the darkness anew. The Resistance, supported by the remnants of the Jedi, including Luke's final apprentice Rey, rallied to oppose the Sith's return. Rey, herself a powerful Force incestable with a mysterious lineage tied to the Sith, undertook the task of mastering the Jedi teachings while confronting the legacy of the Sith Eternal. Her training was marked by internal struggle, balancing the light and dark within her while seeking to uphold the Jedi ideals. Ultimately, the final confrontation occurred on Exile, where the forces of the Resistance faced the Sith fleet in a climactic battle. Rey confronted Palpatine in a battle of wills and power. Through her courage, determination, and connection to the Force, she was able to channel the strength of all past Jedi and finally destroy the Sith Eternal's grip on the galaxy. The end of the Sith and the future of the Jedi. The destruction of Palpatine and the Sith Eternal marked the end of the Sith's reign of terror. However, the new Jedi Order itself had suffered irreparable wounds. The loss of Luke's temple, the betrayal of Kylo Ren, and the burden carried by Rey signaled that the traditional Jedi way would not simply return to power. Instead, Rey symbolized a new beginning, one not bound by rigid codes or dogma, but embracing balance, compassion, and a broader understanding of the Force. The Jedi legacy, once nearly erased, had evolved. It was no longer about a strict dichotomy of light versus dark, but about harmony within oneself and the galaxy. Legacy and lessons. The rise and fall of Luke's new Jedi Order served as a poignant reminder: even the greatest heroes are not immune to failure. The Jedi's history is marked by cycles of hope, triumph, and tragedy. Yet through these cycles, the essence of the Jedi survives: courage, wisdom, and the enduring belief that the light will always find a way. As Rey's story suggests, the future of the Jedi will be different, but no less vital. It will be shaped by the mistakes of the past and the lessons learned from generations of Jedi who fought to protect peace, justice, and balance in the Force. The galaxy's fate is forever intertwined with the Force, and as long as there are those willing to listen, learn, and act with compassion, the Jedi legacy will endure. Jedi philosophy versus the dark side. Eternal struggle. At the core of the Star Wars saga lies a timeless spiritual battle between two opposing philosophies: the Jedi's light side of the Force and the seductive, destructive pull of the dark side. This eternal struggle shapes the destinies of Force sensitives, influencing their choices, sacrifices, and the very fate of the galaxy. Understanding this clash requires delving into the core beliefs, teachings, and temptations that characterize both sides. The Force, an energy field created by all living things, binds the galaxy together, flowing through every creature and planet. It is not a simple power, but dual in nature, composed of the light side and the dark side. The light side embodies peace, harmony, compassion, and selflessness, representing a path of healing, protection, and restraint. Conversely, the dark side represents passion, anger, aggression, and selfish desire, leading to power, domination, and destruction. While the Jedi seek to live in harmony with the Force's light side, the Sith embraced the dark side's raw power. However, the Force itself is a neutral energy. The struggle arises in how individuals choose to wield this power. Paradoxically, the Jedi believe in balance, yet view the dark side as a corrupting force that must be resisted, a tension at the core of their philosophy. The Jedi Order's teachings focus on mastering the self before mastering the Force. Their philosophy emphasizes discipline, with rigorous training to control emotions and desires, discouraging emotional attachments that can lead to fear, anger, and the dark side. Detachment is practiced towards people, possessions, and outcomes, allowing Jedi to act impartially and selflessly, preventing the fear of loss that fuels dark emotions. Jedi see themselves as guardians of peace and justice, dedicated to compassion and service rather than personal gain. They also cultivate patience and wisdom, seeking to understand the larger picture and acting with foresight and calm. This philosophy is reflected in the Jedi Code. There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is no knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force. The dark side is fueled by intense emotions: anger, hatred, fear, and the desire for control. Unlike the Jedi, who suppress these feelings, Sith embrace them, believing that power arises from harnessing one's passions. The Sith Code encapsulates their philosophy. Peace is a lie. There is only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. The Force shall free me. The Sith reject the Jedi's emphasis on selflessness and detachment, believing that the dark side allows individuals to transcend weakness, assert their will, and shape destiny. This pursuit often leads to corruption, destruction, and tyranny. The Jedi's greatest challenge is resisting the dark side's seductive pull, which often manifests subtly. Fear of loss of loved ones or failure to protect others can breed anger and hatred. The desire for power, even with noble intentions, can lead to seeking forbidden abilities to prevent suffering. Pride and hubris can blind Jedi to moral compromise, while unbalanced emotional attachments can lead to possessiveness and desperation. Many Jedi have succumbed to these temptations, with Anakin Skywalker being the most infamous example. His fear of losing Padme Amidala drove him to seek forbidden power, leading to his transformation into Darth Vader. To guard against temptation, Jedi undergo rigorous training from childhood, including meditation, emotional control, and the study of philosophy and ethics. They learn to sense disturbances in the Force and remain vigilant against the dark side's influence. Meditation and mindfulness help Jedi maintain serenity and clarity, preventing rash actions fueled by passion. Jedi also cultivate humility, recognizing that true strength comes from service, not domination. A key tension in Jedi philosophy is the concept of balance. The Force is balanced when the light and dark coexist without dominance, yet the Jedi often perceive the dark side as a corrupting force to be purged. This paradox has led to internal debates within the Jedi Order, with some, like Qui-Gon Jinn, advocating for a more fluid understanding of the Force, while others maintained strict orthodoxy. The inability to reconcile this paradox contributed to the Order's rigidity and eventual downfall. The battle between light and dark is not only cosmic, but deeply personal. Every Force-sensitive individual carries within them the seeds of both. Jedi struggle to master their inner darkness, understanding that denial can lead to repression and eventual explosion. Conversely, Sith embrace their dark emotions but often become enslaved by them, leading to paranoia, isolation, and self-destruction. The greatest heroes, such as Luke Skywalker and Rey, are those who acknowledge their inner conflict and seek true balance. In recent times, the narrative has shifted towards a more nuanced understanding of the Force. The idea of balance now includes accepting emotions and shadows as part of the whole, rather than outright rejection. This evolution is reflected in the teachings of newer Jedi and Force users who seek harmony rather than dogmatic separation, an ongoing philosophical evolution in the galaxy's spiritual landscape. The conflict between Jedi philosophy and the dark side is not confined to ancient history. It continues through new generations of Force users and remains a fundamental theme of the Star Wars universe. The Jedi's vigilance against the dark side's temptations and the Sith's relentless pursuit of power ensure that this struggle will persist as long as the Force exists. The role of Jedi in the Galactic Senate and politics. The Jedi Order's involvement in galactic politics represents one of the most complex and controversial chapters in their history. For centuries, the Jedi served as peacekeepers and diplomats for the Galactic Republic, often acting as intermediaries between planets, species, and political factions. Their presence in the Galactic Senate, though unofficial, was influential, shaping decisions and maintaining order amid the vast, diverse galaxy. However, this close relationship with political institutions also presented profound ethical challenges, blurring the lines between their spiritual mission and political entanglements, and ultimately contributing to their near downfall. From their earliest days, the Jedi were tasked with maintaining peace and justice throughout the galaxy. This mission inevitably led them to interact frequently with the Galactic Senate, a sprawling democratic body representing countless star systems. Jedi Masters often served as envoys, negotiators, and advisors to senators and planetary leaders, relying on their wisdom and reputation for impartiality. The Senate viewed the Jedi as neutral arbiters, capable of diffusing conflicts without the use of military force. Their presence was seen as a stabilizing influence, lending credibility and moral authority to diplomatic efforts. However, as the Republic expanded and political tensions escalated, the Jedi Order's role became increasingly politicized. The outbreak of the Clone Wars marked a turning point when the Jedi, traditionally guardians of peace, were thrust into leadership positions as generals and commanders of the Republic's military forces. This militarization challenged the Jedi's identity and strained their ethical principles. No longer impartial peacekeepers, they became military strategists and combatants, responsible for directing large-scale warfare that cost countless lives. Many Jedi struggled with this duality, torn between their commitment to peace and the harsh realities of war. Their intimate involvement in politics and war placed the Jedi under intense scrutiny and suspicion. Some senators began to question the Order's motivations and impartiality, viewing them as tools of political power rather than independent guardians. This perception was exploited by Chancellor Palpatine, who manipulated both the Jedi and the Senate to consolidate his control. The Jedi's closeness to the political elite made them vulnerable to intrigue, deception, and betrayal, as Palpatine's rise to Emperor was enabled by exploiting their entanglement in politics. One of the central ethical dilemmas the Jedi faced was the tension between their spiritual detachment and the demands of political pragmatism. The Jedi Code emphasized non-attachment and impartiality, yet effective political engagement often required negotiation, compromise, and sometimes secrecy. Jedi envoys were sometimes forced to navigate murky political waters, balancing the needs of the Republic with their moral values. This balancing act was complicated by the Jedi's lack of formal political power. They wielded influence but were not elected officials and had no mandate to make laws. Their actions in the Senate were always advisory or diplomatic, raising questions about accountability and legitimacy. The Jedi's involvement in politics also exposed them to personal conflicts of interest. Individual Jedi sometimes developed close relationships with senators or factions, risking bias or favoritism. For example, Jedi like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker became personally involved with key political figures, influencing their decisions and actions in ways that challenged Jedi neutrality. Anakin's secret marriage to Padme Amidala and his emotional attachments ultimately contributed to his downfall, illustrating the perils of entangling personal loyalties with political roles. Furthermore, the Jedi's role as generals during the Clone Wars further complicated their ethical standing. Leading an army of clone troopers engineered for war was a departure from their traditional role as peacekeepers. The Jedi were forced to make life-and-death decisions on the battlefield, sometimes sacrificing the innocent for strategic goals. These responsibilities weighed heavily on many Jedi, who felt their spiritual mission was compromised by the necessities of war. The burden of command, combined with the constant threat of the dark side's influence, led some Jedi to question their path and contributed to internal divisions within the Order. The political turmoil culminated in the infamous Order 66, when the very soldiers the Jedi commanded turned on them, following a secret directive embedded by Chancellor Palpatine. This betrayal was the ultimate consequence of the Jedi's deep integration into politics and military affairs. Their power and influence had made them enemies of the Sith and those seeking absolute control, resulting in their near-lodal annihilation. Despite these challenges, many Jedi maintained a strong commitment to their principles throughout this period. They sought to serve the greater good, protect the innocent, and uphold justice, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Their efforts in the Senate helped prevent full-scale galactic collapse and maintained a semblance of order amid chaos. The Jedi's legacy in politics is thus one of both noble service and tragic failure, a cautionary tale about the dangers of spiritual institutions becoming too entwined with temporal power. In the aftermath of the Empire's rise, the Jedi's political role diminished dramatically. The new authoritarian regime outlawed the Order and suppressed any remnants of their influence. Surviving Jedi went into hiding, and the galaxy entered an era where fear and oppression replaced diplomacy and peacekeeping. The Rebel Alliance, though primarily a military and political resistance, inherited some of the Jedi's ideals of freedom and justice, continuing the struggle to restore balance. In summary, the Jedi's involvement in the Galactic Senate and politics was a double-edged sword. It allowed them to promote peace and stability on a grand scale, but also exposed them to ethical compromises, manipulation, and vulnerability. Their journey highlights the delicate balance between spiritual mission and political power, a dynamic that resonates beyond the Star Wars universe. As a universal theme about the risks of power and the importance of integrity, the Jedi's story reminds us that even the noblest intentions can be undermined by the complexities of politics, and that vigilance and humility are essential for any who seek to serve both the light and the galaxy. The Jedi in the modern era, New Generations and Challenges. The Star Wars saga continues to evolve, with the sequel trilogy which introduces a new era for the Jedi, one marked by hope, renewal, but also significant challenges. Following the fall of the Empire and the collapse of Luke Skywalker's new Jedi Order, the galaxy has transformed dramatically. The Jedi, once guardians of peace and justice for millennia, must now navigate a rapidly changing political and social landscape, facing threats both old and new. The sequel trilogy brings fresh faces, complex legacies, and renewed struggles that explore what it truly means to be a Jedi in the modern era. At the heart of this new chapter is Rey, a young scavenger from the desert planet Jakku, who discovers she is strong with the Force. Rey represents a new generation of Jedi, one unbound by the traditions and expectations of the past. Unlike Luke Skywalker, who was trained within the rigid structures of the Old Order, Rey's training is more solitary and self-directed. She must learn to harness her abilities, understand her identity, and confront the dark forces that threaten the galaxy on her own terms. Rey's journey is intertwined with the legacy of the Skywalker family, whose story dominates much of the sequel trilogy. Her search for belonging and purpose echoes the struggles faced by Anakin and Luke, but also diverges as she seeks to forge a new path that honors the Jedi's values while rejecting their failures. Rey's complex lineage, ultimately revealed to be the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine, adds a profound layer of internal conflict, symbolizing the ongoing battle between light and dark within individuals and across generations. Alongside Rey, the trilogy introduces other Force-sensitive characters grappling with their roles and destinies. Ben Solo, once a promising Jedi apprentice and heir to the Skywalker legacy, falls to the dark side and becomes Kylo Ren, leader of the First Order and a new incarnation of Sith-like ambition. His struggle represents the tragic cycle of temptation and redemption that has long defined the Jedi-Sith conflict. Kylo Ren's character adds complexity to the narrative, showing that the boundaries between light and dark are often blurred and that redemption remains possible even for those who have fallen deeply. The Jedi's place in the galaxy during this era is no longer secure or dominant. The Republic has been replaced by the First Order, a militaristic regime seeking to restore the Empire's former glory. The Resistance, a fragmented and desperate force, fights to oppose this tyranny. In this turbulent environment, the Jedi are no longer widely recognized as protectors or authorities. Their ancient temples are ruins, and their teachings are nearly forgotten. Rey's discovery of Luke Skywalker in Exile reflects the Jedi's diminished status and the galaxy's uncertainty about the Force future. The sequel trilogy also explores new philosophies about the Force and the Jedi. Rey's training involves confronting the limitations of traditional Jedi dogma and embracing a more balanced understanding of the Force, including acknowledging the existence and lessons of the dark side without succumbing to it. This nuanced perspective suggests an evolution of Jedi philosophy, one that embraces complexity and rejects rigid dualism. The challenges faced by the Jedi in the modern era are not only external but internal. Rey must contend with her own fears, doubts, and the temptation of the dark side. She must reconcile her heritage with her desire to choose her own destiny. Similarly, Ben Solo's journey illustrates the cost of failing to reconcile these conflicts. Their intertwined fates emphasize that the struggle for balance is ongoing and deeply personal. Moreover, the sequel trilogy broadens the scope of the Jedi legacy by introducing diverse characters and perspectives. Figures like Rose Tico, though not Force users, embody the spirit of resistance and hope that complements the Jedi's mission. This expanded cast reflects a galaxy in flux, where heroism and sacrifice come in many forms. In summary, the Jedi in the modern era are defined by renewal, adaptation, and the enduring battle between light and dark. The sequel trilogy reimagines the Jedi legacy through new generations who must navigate a galaxy still scarred by conflict and betrayal. Their stories remind us that the Jedi are not infallible and that true strength comes from facing inner darkness and choosing the light despite it. As the saga continues, the Jedi remain a symbol of hope and resilience, a testament to the power of courage, compassion, and the enduring struggle for balance in a universe forever shaped by the Force. The future of the Jedi Order, hope and rebirth. As the Star Wars saga continues to unfold, One of the most compelling questions that fans and storytellers alike ponder is, what lies ahead for the Jedi Order? After millennia of triumphs, tragedies, and transformations, the Jedi stand at a crossroads. Their legacy is one of resilience and renewal, but also of caution and introspection. The future of the Jedi Order holds endless possibilities: hope for rebirth, the potential for evolution, and the challenge of adapting to a galaxy forever changed by conflict, diversity, and the enduring presence of the Force. The Jedi have survived near annihilation multiple times, from the Great Jedi Purge following Order 66 to the destruction of Luke Skywalker's new Jedi Order. Each time, remnants of the Order have sought to preserve their teachings, pass on their wisdom, and rekindle the flame of the light side. This resilience speaks to a core truth about the Jedi. They are not just an institution or a set of teachings, but a living legacy rooted in the Force itself. In imagining the future of the Jedi, one must consider how their philosophy and structure might evolve. Traditional Jedi doctrine emphasized detachment, emotional restraint, and strict adherence to the Jedi Code. Yet the failures of the past, such as Anakin Skywalker's fall, the Order's rigidity, and its political entanglements, have prompted new interpretations. Modern narratives suggest a more balanced, flexible approach to the Force, one that acknowledges the complexities of emotion, attachment, and identity. This shift toward balance is embodied by characters like Rey, who represents a new kind of Jedi, one who integrates compassion and strength, light and shadow, tradition and innovation. Rey's journey indicates that the future Jedi may no longer be bound by old rules, but will instead forge a path defined by understanding, empathy, and harmony with the Force. The practical future of the Jedi Order may also involve a reimagined structure. The ancient temple on Coruscant symbolized centralized authority and formal training, but in a fragmented galaxy, the Order may become more decentralized. Small groups or individual Jedi might serve as wandering guardians, teachers, and peacekeepers without rigid hierarchy. This model could allow the Jedi to be more adaptable and less susceptible to corruption or stagnation. Moreover, the Jedi will likely face new challenges. The galaxy is vast and ever-changing, with emerging threats from remnants of the Sith, new dark side cults, or unforeseen cosmic forces. The Jedi will need to confront these dangers while remaining vigilant against internal decay. The temptation of the dark side remains an eternal adversary, requiring continual spiritual discipline and self-awareness. In addition to external threats, the Jedi's relationship with galactic society will continue to evolve. Their previous involvement in politics and warfare revealed the dangers of becoming too entwined in temporal power. The future Jedi may adopt a more cautious stance, acting as moral guides and defenders of peace without direct political influence, thereby preserving their impartiality and spiritual integrity. Technology and the expansion of galactic civilization may also influence the Jedi's role. New worlds, species, and cultures will require the Jedi to broaden their understanding of the Force and adapt their teachings to diverse contexts. This inclusivity could enrich the Order, fostering greater empathy and wisdom. The Force itself, mysterious and boundless, may reveal new aspects. As Jedi explore deeper connections with the Force, they might unlock abilities and insights previously unknown. This evolution could redefine what it means to be a Jedi and how the Order serves the galaxy. Ultimately, the future of the Jedi Order hinges on the choices of individuals who hear the Force's call. The legacy of heroes like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, Luke Skywalker, and Rey inspires new generations to take up the mantle. Their stories teach that being a Jedi is less about perfection and more about striving for balance, justice, and compassion despite imperfection. As the saga progresses, whether through films, books, or other media, the narrative will continue to explore these themes. The Jedi will remain symbols of hope, courage, and the enduring light in a galaxy often shadowed by darkness. In conclusion, the Jedi's future is a tapestry woven from hope and hardship, tradition and transformation. Their legacy is not static, but dynamic, shaped by the ever-changing currents of the Force and the galaxy's fate. Whether as a restored order, a new way of the Force, or a quiet but powerful presence across the stars, the Jedi will endure, guiding those who seek peace and balance, lighting the way through the eternal struggle between light and dark.